Are you ready?
Yes, I am, Chairman.
Thank you. Let's proceed.
Chairman, this afternoon we are hearing the testimony of Dr. Takisi Janki Masiteng.
Thank you.
Dr. Masiteng, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Are you ready to be sworn in?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, please administer the oath or affirmation.
Please state your full names for the record.
Takisi Janki Masiteng. Takisi Janki Masiteng.
Please raise your voice.
Takisi Janki Masiteng.
Do you have any objection with taking the prescribed oath?
No.
Do you consider the oath to be binding on your conscience?
Yes.
Do you swear that the evidence you will give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
So help me God.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Dr. Masiteng, if you go to page 1 of your statement, there's a witness bundle on your table. To your left, there are some reference files that I will put
Okay.
for this afternoon's purposes.
Okay. Are we going to be needing the media bundle?
We shouldn't, Chairman. I just asked the registrar to leave it here in case, but
Okay.
I doubt it very much. Thank you.
Okay.
Dr. Masiteng, if you could go to page 1 of your sworn affidavit, and as you hold that page, if you could just also look at page 6 of the same document. And-
I see that looks like there is a new hand in terms of what's happening. An affidavit is a sworn statement, so I see that we are having sworn affidavits. It's double sworn.
Yes. So the first sworn is tautologist, and as the legal team, we didn't pick it up. Our apologies. But you're correct, Chairman. And I always say that as you make comments, the rest of us pick up on things that, we can improve on.
Yes,
But
no,
that is
that's
absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Yes. So it is in fact an affidavit, because it is a sworn statement as an affidavit. The Chairman is correct. Could you confirm your names on page 1? Is that you?
Yes, yes.
And then could you then confirm on page 6 who the deponent is, whose signature rather appears where the word deponent is? Whose signature?
That's my signature.
Is that your signature? And on what date and at what place did you sign this affidavit?
It was signed at Bloemfontein on the 28th of June, 2019.
Thank you. You are familiar with its contents?
I'm familiar with the contents.
You have, of course, given us a very short affidavit in respect of the matters you'll be testifying to, but you've also taken the liberty of annexing a rather voluminous annexure, which represents the court papers that are part of the court record, which you'd like us to refer to.
Yes.
You confirm that you have been cited as a party both, in the asset forfeiture application that the National Prosecuting Authority brought, and that you also have been facing criminal prosecution in respect of the criminal matters brought, but that in respect of the criminal matter, that case has been withdrawn against you.
Yes.
And your full explanation of everything you did, you say, is in this voluminous annexure that you've
Yes.
favored
Yes.
the commission with.
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Masiteng, I think it's useful just to start off with who you are, what you do, just the present before we delve into the past.
Okay.
Who are you, qualification-wise? What do you do currently?
Thank you very much, Advocate Kawase. Chairperson, currently I am the acting head of the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development in the Free State Province. In terms of the qualification, I have a doctorate degree in agriculture. I've completed it in 2004 from the Central University of Technology. Yes.
Yes. Then, prior to being appointed HOD, Head of Department, in fact, can I rephrase that? When were you appointed Head of Department?
Through you, Chairperson, I'm acting. I've started acting on the 24th of December 2018. So I don't even have a year acting.
And the full name of the department is?
The Department of Agriculture and Rural Development.
Okay. The objective today is to try and explain to the chairman what your role has been in the Vrede Dairy project matter. So you know that's where we're going to. But I think it would be useful for us to start at a slightly different point with first when you joined the department and whether it was called the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development when you joined. I think it will be that history will inform the chairman of the context in which some of the decisions that we will be discussing were taken in.
Okay.
So just tell us a little bit when you joined the department.
Chairperson, I joined the Department of Agriculture when it was still in the homeland, in the former Kolkwa homeland. And in 1996, after the elections, after 1994, we then moved into the province. We became the Free State Province and one Department of Agriculture. But I resigned in 2000, and I joined the Central University of Technology. At that time, it was the Technical Free State, as a full-time lecturer. And I rejoined the department as a deputy director, responsible for extension and food security. That was in 2002. And I was promoted then to the director's position, responsible for a district. In the province, we have 4 districts plus a metro. But in total, let's say there are 5. I was appointed to head one of those districts, which is Harib. I was then moved into a head office to be responsible for farmer support and development. And I was acting chief director responsible for agricultural development support, the position which I was appointed to, that is agricultural development support. But in 2012, I was then moved, 1st of April, I was then moved to district services. The position which I was holding until the 24th, or I'm still holding. I just paused when I was then appointed to act as a head of the department.
So in the period 2012 to 2016, specifically, you were chief director in the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development.
Yes, yes.
Do you know Mr. Peter Tabete, the former HOD of the department?
Yes, yes, I know.
You served under him.
I served under him.
Good.
Yes.
Can you just give the chairman a short summary of his move, his promotion to HOD? And really, I'm more interested in the organogram and how it changed, because it's important for the chairman to be able to understand how or at what stage the then HOD, Mr. Tabete, took office.
Okay. No, thank you very much, Chairperson. What we had the Department of Agriculture. At that time, we didn't have rural development. Rural development was with Public Works. And then rural development was moved to the Department of Agriculture. And then we had a sort of two departments. That is the Department of Rural Development and the Department of Agriculture. And in 2010, Mr. Tabete was appointed as an HOD for rural development. That was in 2010. And he moved to agriculture. It was the same department. We are now called the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development, but with two HODs. We had the head of the Department for Agriculture. We also had the head of the Department for Rural Development. So only in 2012, he then moved to agriculture. There was that movement. The HOD for agriculture moved to rural development, and the HOD for rural development moved to agriculture.
Who takes those decisions, transferring officials from one post to another?
That will be the executive decision. That is the movement of the HODs, and that's the responsibility of the Premier together with the Executive Council.
When you speak about two HODs, one for the Department of Agriculture, another one being the Department of Rural Development,
Yes.
are you talking about these two being separate departments, or are you talking about them being sections within the same department?
It is one department with two HODs. It is now no more the Department of Agriculture only. It is now the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development with two HODs and one executive authority, one MEC, but two HODs.
Yes, but there can't be two heads of the same department. Was the arrangement such that one of them enjoyed the rank of HOD, but there was one of them who was the HOD?
Yes.
That is what,
Yes.
that was what the position
That
was.
is why we were using different terms.
Yes.
The one for agriculture, we call it an accounting.
Yeah,
Yes, and then the rural development was an HOD, but that was corrected.
Yes.
Because then we had to have one department and one HOD.
okay, thank you.
So what you have currently, one department and one HOD.
One HOD.
When Mr. Peter Tabete was there, and I specifically want to look at the period 2012, 2013, 2014, 15, and 16. In that period, was that a transitional period where you still had the two heads of department?
Yes, that was 2010, 11, 12, 13. No, yeah. I think it was up to 12. And then we had one HOD,
So-
which was then Mr. Tabete.
Yeah.
There was an interview, and then it was Mr. Tabete who was responsible for then both agriculture and rural development
As the accounting officer?
as the accounting officer now.
So 2013, he took sole responsibility for decisions that had to be taken.
Yes, yes.
But even in 2012, he would take responsibility for anything that happened within agriculture.
Yes,
And
yes,
at that time, you were chief director within agriculture.
yes.
So you reported to Mr. Tabete.
In terms of the organogram, I report to the HOD.
Maybe you just very quickly want to take the chairman through that organogram. I know that you've annexed it to your papers.
Yes, in terms of the organogram, that is, in terms of the organogram
Just
structure.
1 minute.
Okay.
Please. Page 268, Chairman. And we must apologize for the quality of the copy, Chairman.
Yes.
Mr. Dr. Masiteng has undertaken to try and find a better copy for
Better
us.
copies, okay.
We are now telling everybody that you have a keen interest in them supplying us with documents. And so you helped, Chairman, by asking Mr. Fenter for documents.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. I am at 268.
Okay. Now, thanks, Chair. In terms of the organizational structure, the member of the Executive Council responsible for the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development is the political
But
head.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Dr. Masiteng. This one, this copy is just so
It's
poor.
a very poor
It's not
copy,
worth
Chairman.
even looking at it. That's just how bad it is. I
Yes.
can't read much. But you can explain. It's
Okay.
okay.
Yes. The executive, the member of the Executive Council is actually responsible for the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development, and it is a political head of the department.
And then just pause for 1 second so that we tidy this up immediately.
Yes.
2012, 2013, who was that political head of the department?
At that time, it was Mr. Zwane.
Thank you.
Yes.
Please proceed. So
Yes.
Mr. Zwane was the executing authority,
And
followed by the HOD.
by the HOD.
The accounting officer, and you at a
then you
level
have-
below that.
Yes, you have legs. You will have a CFO as a, let's call it a chief directorate. It's a standalone. It reports directly to the accounting office. You will have what we call the district services, which is the chief directorate that I'm heading. Then you have another chief directorate, which is, let's call it agricultural development support and livelihoods. Or let's simplify it by saying it's a professional services. It's a chief directorate on its own. It is headed by another chief director. At that time, it was an acting chief director, but there was a stage when there was a person who was transferred from Mpumalanga to Free State who took over that chief directorate. And you will also have monitoring and evaluation as a chief directorate. You will also have corporate services. So in total, you would have 5 chief directorates under the accounting officer.
But again, context is important. For purposes of the Vrede Dairy Farm matter, the critical elements of the organogram that you're sketching, and please correct me if I'm interpreting your evidence incorrectly. First, you've got the MEC. Well, above the MEC, of course, you've got the Premier,
Yes.
with an EXCO made up of MECs.
Yes.
Okay. So you have the MEC for the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development. You then have the HOD, who's the accounting officer. You then have District Services, Chief Directorate, that's where you sit.
Yes.
But you also have the CFO, you've told us, who would report to the
the accounting
HOD,
office, yes.
accounting officer. Are those the critical parts of the organogram for purposes of what we are dealing with today?
Yes, they are. Those are the most critical ones. Then after them, you will have different legs, different directorates. For district services, you will have 5 directors, because each and every district, we have appointed a director, a senior manager for that matter.
Can you tell the chairman what the different districts are within the Free State province?
You have Thabo Mofutsanyana.
And then pause, explain please to the chairman, is the town of Vrede situated in Thabo Mofutsanyana?
Yes, yes.
Thank you, continue.
Under Thabo Mofutsanyana, you have Vrede Dairy and other projects. And we have classified Thabo Mofutsanyana as our dairy hub, because you also have other dairy projects. The district director at that time, it was Me Alta Meya, as an acting, And that is why you'll hear a lot of Me Alta.
Confusion, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
she
okay.
was acting as a district director. And she was not only looking after one project, which is Vrede Dairy. She was looking at other projects, but it was her responsibility to every now and then keep in touch with the beneficiaries. So there is nothing untoward over the hearing of Altamea. It was her responsibility.
Okay.
Then the person who was appointed for the position was Mr. George Madiba. That is why you will hear again the mentioning of Mr. George Madiba. He was actually appointed as a district director. But Me Alta, because she was a project coordinator, then she was every now and then involved in the affairs of the projects and so on and so forth. But you also have now the extension officers in all the towns. Vrede, for instance, will have its own extension officer, but we also strengthen that by appointing the food security, let's call them officers. Those are at the lower level to strengthen the food security, more especially in this red spot sort of towns like Vrede, where poverty is high.
Well, while we're dealing with names of people who have been mentioned in witnesses' evidence, and you speak of extension officers and the food security officials, Tuto Khanye, is he one of the people who works at a lower level within the
Yes.
structure of the organization? Locate him for the chairman, please.
Tuto was more of a food security officer at the lower level and at the contractual sort of a basis. It was not a permanent appointment.
And people like that would be appointed by whom?
They are appointed by the department.
At what level is he appointed? At HOD level or at chief directorship level or at district directorship level? I just want to know who had the authority to appoint. In this instance, we're talking about Tuto Khanye.
Yes. All the appointments in the department are done by the HOD, unless delegated, depending on the levels. But even though they are delegated, the HOD must know that we are going to have, let's say 5 in Thabo Mofutsanyana, we are going to have 6 in Harip and so on and so forth.
So the HOD would actually be appointing all senior managers within the Free State administration, all middle managers, and even junior officials within the Free State administration in all 5 districts.
That's
and
right.
there's a metro.
Okay, that is why I said unless delegated. Now what happened is that the delegation is such that the HOD will be responsible for the chief directors and the senior managers. The deputy directors and the assistant directors will be appointed by the chief directors, and so it goes. But the information must be discussed at that level of the HOD to be informed as an accounting officer that there will be appointments, not necessarily meaning that the HOD will be sitting there conducting the interviews and so on and so forth.
Other name that has come up in the evidence that has been placed before the chairman is that of Kuliza Sibeko. Is that a name you're familiar with, also from the Vrede area?
I'm familiar with that. At Vrede, I think there were 2 people who were appointed as foot soldiers for food security purposes.
So
But I think that one I must verify properly, Chairperson. But yes, I know at Vrede we appointed not only 1 person.
And you are taking an educated guess and saying it would have been Tuto Khanye
And
and Kuliza Sibeko.
Yes, Chairperson.
They have, of course, been mentioned in the affidavit of Mr. Dlamini, who gave evidence earlier today and yesterday.
Yes,
And
yes.
that of Mr. Ngongwane.
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Mphahlele is another name that has come up. Is that an official within your department as well, who you know about?
Jimmy is an extension officer. Jimmy is at a much higher level.
An extension officer would be at what level in relation to a director, a chief director, and so on?
The assistant director and the controls. Then you have the technical staff. That will be the
difference in functions of the extension officer and the food security officers. And I say this, I really want to be quite frank, because the evidence that has been led so far seems to imply that the food security officers were simply henchmen of the MEC. And if I got that wrong, I will correct it, but that's the impression I've had from the evidence that has been led. Please explain these roles to us, because we now know they are located in your department, the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development. We now know that you, as a chief director, know about these particular appointees. Can you just tell us a little more, because you are able to and willing to?
The extension officer is the manager of that particular ward. If we appoint an extension officer for Friday, that person is a manager of that town. Now, under that, you would have an administrators, but the foot soldiers, they report to the extension officer. And they are assigned with responsibilities of establishing a food security gardens and other food security initiatives.
What qualification does one need to become a food, what did you say? You seem to say soldier, so I don't want to get it wrong.
Yes. On that one, it can be at the matric level, plus maybe the training courses that you are already having or that the department will take you through.
But
you don't have to have a formal qualification like an extension officer, sorry.
But were you saying food soldier or foot soldier?
Yeah, foot soldier.
Foot soldier?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Chairman. I was going to,
Okay.
I did want clarity on that.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's a foot soldier.
But the official term is a food security officer.
Yes,
What's their title?
They are officers. They are just officers, but at the lower level, you do have a district coordinator, food security coordinators. Those ones are almost at the similar level like the extension officers.
Maybe what we should ask is, of these people, who would you put under the label of foot soldiers? So when you talk about foot soldier, were you referring to a category of officers in the department, or were you referring to a specific person, or was that just
Freudian slip.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand, because it may be that in a way, as acting head of the department, you see the department as being, in a way, in a war, maybe against poverty.
Yes.
And you have got foot soldiers in this battle or in this war against poverty, and maybe that's the context you are using the term foot soldiers. So I'm trying to understand who you may have been referring to.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. The whole district services, we always refer to it as a cold face of the department. Those are the people who must be closer to, those are the officials who must be closer to the people. Now you have these ones that I'm referring to. It's just a term that I've used.
Yes, no, I understand. But
Yes.
I wanted to know whether there is a category of officers that you regard as the foot soldiers of the department. And if that is the case, I wanted to understand that. Or whether it's not like there are certain categories of officers that you refer to as foot soldiers. It's just a term that you could use to refer to anybody in the department that is working for the department.
No, we always refer to the ones that are actually
At the
doing
cold
the
face.
Yes.
Yes, and those would be extension officers.
Those will be extension officers. will be the food security officers,
Yes.
will be the animal health
Yes.
technicians,
Yes.
will be the soil conservation technicians,
Yes, yes.
will be also the agricultural economics. Yes, they
Yes.
are, because they are at the district level.
Yes, yes.
And those are the key ones that, yes.
And
And then
those
you
are the-
also have the project officers. Those are the ones that we refer to as the coalface.
Those are the ones who interact with the public and with the farmers, with the community on a daily basis.
Yes, yes,
Okay,
yes,
all right.
Chairperson, yes.
But to extend the question the chairman has just asked, who would then be monitoring and overseeing projects in the district? And I use in this instance the example of the Vrede Dairy project. So of the personnel you've just told us about, who would be interacting with a project such as the Vrede Dairy project?
Yeah. What happened is this: the district services will only wait if the project is under construction until a completion certificate is issued. But where a project is completed, the district services had to interact. That will also include the project coordinators and so on and so forth. But in this case of a Vrede project, remember, an implementing agent was appointed. So the district did not have a role as such to play, except to interact with the beneficiaries. And also the professional services, that one that has got the engineers, that has got the economists, that has got the researchers, and so on. They did not have that much role to play because an implementing agent was appointed.
Good, we're going to come back to that when we're looking at the agreement on Esteana.
Yes.
I'm really trying to get a broad sense and to understand how things would normally work within the department.
Yes.
And I just tried to fit the Vrede Dairy project really into the normal structures. But I understand what you're saying. We'll come back to talk about what an implementing agent is, what the qualities are, et cetera, et cetera. Can I then ask you to, the only official who we really haven't spent a bit of time on is the CFO, because we now know all the people who essentially would be reporting into the Chief Directorate, which is what you headed, and you report to the HOD. You also have the CFO.
Yeah.
Just tell us exactly what the functions of the CFO in that environment are. And if there's any difference between the functions today, as you have found them in that office, and the functions in 2012, 13, 14, please just point that out to the chairman.
Chairperson, let me try to assist. And please, that is not my field now, but I'm trying to assist now.
Yes, yes. I wasn't sure whether you particularly wanted the functions or you wanted where in the hierarchy a CFO fits, but you said functions.
Yes,
So-
Chairman, because he's explained where in the hierarchy
Yes,
the
okay.
CFO.
Okay.
And I simply am taking the liberty because he happens to be the acting HOD.
Yes, yes,
And if he's been there for 6
Yeah.
months,
Yeah.
I think he knows his num-num now.
yeah.
Yes.
So she doesn't necessarily need you to tabulate all of them.
Yeah.
She
Okay.
just wants the essential ones.
All right.
An overview, just to give,
Just an
just so we can understand that environment. It might not be the same as another environment we've explored previously.
yes.
Thank you.
Let me just summarize it like this, Chairperson, to assist. An accounting officer should appoint a CFO with a relevant experience at a senior management level and to demonstrate capacity to interpret, analyze, and present complex information, manage working capital assets and liabilities, and also meet the reporting requirements. That is the monthly reports under the PFMA, DORA, and annual financial statement. So what is happening is that the responsibility of the CFO is also to manage the budget manager. but also at the same time to look at the assets and to ensure that compliance is actually done by the department. So the affairs of, the financial affairs of the department is actually the responsibility of the CFO.
In the structure that you've mapped out for us, what is the relationship between the HOD and the Premier? And I ask this only because we've had evidence placed before this commission that a number of functions were centralized in the Premier's office. And his office is a staff complement of 600 people in just that office. So help us understand the relationship then between the HOD in Agriculture and Rural Development and the Premier. And if not, well, let's start with the Premier.
HODs are appointed by the Premier.
Is there a reporting function from the HOD to the Premier, or does the HOD give his or her reports to the MEC?
They give the report to the MEC. Unless requested, then they can also send the reports to the Premier via the MEC.
Can the Premier give an instruction to the HOD?
The Premier can give the instruction to the MEC.
Under what circumstances?
Let's say it's like if it's a technical issue, like for instance, if it's something that the HOD need to investigate and provide a report urgently to the Premier can go straight, but it remains the responsibility of that HOD to inform the MEC.
Can the Premier instruct the HOD who to contract with?
No.
I'm coming back to this question.
Yes.
From a different angle, but let's leave it just, can he or she instruct an HOD whom to contract or transact with?
It's quite an interesting question, yes. Chairperson. But even if you, as an accounting officer, you still have the responsibility to say, yes, I understand, but this one is not going to work. Or I still have to follow the following processes. And you have the responsibility to also report it to the executive authority to say there is this request, I still have to follow this and that and that. If you think that it must be taken to the executive, you have that responsibility.
Because the accounting officer is bound by the provisions of the PFMA.
Because the accounting officer is bound by those provisions, but also the provisions does not stop any request if it's financial or what, as long as it is written down.
No, say that again, because I don't think it's correct, but just repeat that, because I'll interrogate it with you and give you an example.
Yes.
Of why I don't think that sounds right.
What I'm saying is, in such...
I'm sorry. It comes across as if it's a threat to interrogate him.
My apologies. Chairman, he said to me I mustn't cross-examine him. I'm trying to smile as I ask my questions. But I really am curious.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
And I know that he's been in the department. He's told us he's been there a long time.
Yes.
And I'm really just tapping into that information.
Yes.
Dr. Masiteng, you please understand that I'm trying to learn as much as I can for purposes of the record so that we know roughly how the Free State operated, certainly from one perspective. I'm not saying you know everything.
Yes. No, thank you very much, Chairperson. What I was saying is, in terms of the Public Finance Management Act, yes, it does allow the executive authority, in this case I'm referring to the political heads, they can give instructions. But if that instruction has got something to do with a financial commitment, it must be in writing. And if it is going to result into an irregular, it has to be properly packaged, and now it must go to National Treasury, to Provincial and to National Treasury.
In fact...
I'm sorry. Is it correct to say that what you are saying is that apart from a situation where the instruction must be in writing, what you are saying is that any instruction that is given by the executive authority to the accounting officer or head of department must be lawful.
Yes.
Yes. And if it is not lawful, the head of department or accounting officer is under no obligation to comply with it. Do you go that far or do you not go that far?
No, what I'm saying is if it is not lawful, as an accounting officer, you have the responsibility to go to engage with your political head and said, but these are the challenges that I sort of realize, so I won't be able to execute as such.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
But you tie that responsibility into the execution or implementation of that decision by the executing authority.
That will be before.
Yes. I'm sorry, Dr. Masiteng. I'm trying to draw a distinction between an instruction that is given, that you will do this and do this right now, and an official who prepares documentation on instruction from somebody in authority. So I'm trying to understand your evidence. Are you saying that there's a difference in the attitude of the official who gets an instruction from an executing authority and that of an official, one of your extension officers who's given an instruction? Does he or she have to execute that instruction or not? I'm looking at different levels of operation.
Yes, there will be, most certainly. But remember, in government department, how it works, the premier's performance agreement informs that one of the MEC, the MEC informed that one of the HOD, the HOD's one informed mine, and mine informs the senior managers. So it sort of infiltrates down. So if I give an instruction in your performance agreement, let's say for instance an accounting officer, if I give a chief director an instruction, inside the performance agreement, it will clearly stipulate that one of that person's responsibility is to support the accounting officer in achieving the following. So now, what we are asking about, the extent at which it depends, for instance, on the magnitude. Here, let's say the instruction is to implement a 1 million project. It is different from an instruction to say, go and implement a 10,000 project, for argument's sake. And that will be delegated as such to the senior managers and to different levels. That's what I was referring to, Chairperson, if I was clear.
If in your position as a chief director, you gave an extension officer an instruction that the extension officer is not happy with, would query, what does that extension officer do? Please, Chairman, allow me to ask a compound question. And I ask this question, Dr. Masiteng, I've had discussions with you. I ask this question in the context of what happened with the Vrede Dairy project. Chief Director is given an instruction to do certain things. So I don't want to mislead you. I want to understand when one is under some form of compulsion to execute an instruction, and when you can say, I'm sorry, I will not do it, because I don't think this is right.
Let's take, for instance, the instruction that comes from, let's say, from the head of the department. And as a chief director, I think I need X, Y, and Z. It will remain my responsibility to say, but I don't see this one, I don't see that one. But in instances where the HOD is saying, I am giving you an instruction and I want this, and this is the document that I've got, you have no chance. You will have to scrutinize the document and comply. He's not asking you, he's instructing you. He's not saying, do you have an opinion here? What can we do? He's instructing you to assist. Official performance agreement also says, I will assist, I will support the HOD in executing the following.
Yes,
Maybe let's ask the question, let me ask this. As you understand the position in the Agriculture and Rural Development Department, when may a subordinate refuse to carry out an instruction given by his or her superior? Or is the position that subordinates are always obliged to carry out instructions given to them by their superiors?
It is the situation of obliging chairperson.
So is your answer that, at least in that department, your understanding is that a subordinate who gets an instruction from his or her superior is always obliged to carry it out, even if the instruction is unlawful?
No. If you feel, chairperson, that this is unlawful and you provide reasons, then you can do it in writing and say, but I don't understand this part. But in this instance, where an accounting officer is saying, I have looked at all the avenues, I am convinced, I am happy, I am instructing you to compile this for me or to do this for me, it's an issue of obliging. You have to oblige.
Now, I understand what you are saying to mean that where as a subordinate you are of the view that the instruction given to you by your superior is unlawful, and you express that opinion to your superior, but he insists that as far as he or she is concerned, the instruction is lawful, you as a subordinate become obliged to carry out this instruction that you believe to be unlawful because your superior thinks differently. Is that correct?
Let me put it like this, Chairperson. Let's say, what I'm saying is, if you feel, let's say for instance there is nothing, it's just an instruction to say go and do X, Y, and Z, and you feel that, no man, I am not comfortable, you have all the rights to put it down and say, but I don't understand. But in instances...
No, let's leave out don't understand. You do understand.
Yes.
What the instruction says you must do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Then you can put it in writing and say, but I don't agree with what you are saying I must do, because there is nothing. But I am saying in instances where, let's say the accounting officer, for instance, is saying, I am from this meeting, I am from that, and what we must do is this one. In fact, what I'm going to do is this. I am instructing you to assist me with X, Y, and Z. You are obliged.
Now, are you obliged as a subordinate to assist him or her, even if what he wants to do or she wants to do, as far as you are concerned, is unlawful? As long as he says, you must assist me, I want this to be done, are you obliged to continue to assist him to do something unlawful?
No.
You are not obliged in
You are
that
not obliged
situation.
in that case.
Okay,
Yes.
no, I just wanted to understand.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. But in that instance, what goes through your mind as an official is whether you are meeting your KPIs, your key performance indicators, which you've also annexed to your papers. Because your key performance indicators tell you you've got to support. As a chief director,
Yes.
you must support
Yes,
the HOD.
yes,
Am I right?
yes, yes.
But back to the chairman's question, what then goes through your mind? You know what your key performance indicators are, but you also know that what you're being asked to do is irregular. You know, therefore, that if you don't perform in terms of your key performance indicators, you could lose your job. What do you do as an official? This is a perennial problem in government, all levels of government.
Yeah. What is happening, Chairperson, is that there are levels. I think that is where we have to start. In instances where the accounting officer is clear and is saying, I will report this as an irregular. If I remember that, those remains the responsibility of the HOD. The HOD is not asking you for your opinion. The HOD is saying, you have the responsibility to take this instruction of just compiling this for me. I'm not asking you your opinion and whatever. I am now instructing you to compile. And then if you say no, it might pose a challenge because it's an instruction. He's not asking your opinion. He is instructing you. He has taken all the risk. He has looked at all the risk and he has accepted the consequences. Therefore, your task is just to compile or to submit to the accounting office.
It may be that we will make more progress if we go to the specifics than the general.
Yes.
Yeah.
Chairman, this is where we are right now. So if you look at the reference file, the first one, page 1313, Chairman, I think should be, I know they've
Is
moved.
that under A?
That's under D, Chairman.
I think both
Chairman?
Levanto and I thought you said A and B.
Sorry,
Maybe you said
Chairman,
A and D.
my colleague says it's easier for us to go to page 87 of Dr. Masiteng's affidavit. We'll find the same document,
Okay, thank you.
and it's easier to handle here.
What page?
87, Chairman.
Okay.
It is labeled Annexure F. Dr. Masiteng, page 87 to 89 of your affidavit, of your papers, deal with the submission you made, or let me rephrase that, deal with the submission the Chief Directorate District Services made with respect to the partnership the department was contemplating entering into with Esteana. First, we really should go to page 89, where you have 3 blocks that have various directives. The first says submitted by, the second says recommended, the third says approved. Maybe we should take this, break it down slowly and start off with submitted by. Your name appears here. Please just explain to the chairman whether that is your signature or not.
No, that's not my signature.
And tell the chairman why it's not your signature, why you did not sign this document.
I did not sign the submission, Chair, because I believe that at that time I was not even around, and also there was a stage, I think on the 26th, it's signed on the 26th. I don't think I was around.
Yes.
Yes. And there was a stage, but I think we will deal with that one. There was the stage I was out of the country.
Do you know whose signature appears above your name in that block?
This one is the signature of Mr. Sar van Skalkwyk, who's the district director for Harip.
Was he one of the people who reported to you at the time?
Yes, he's one of the people who reported to me. I think he signed as an acting or what.
Okay.
So we're looking at the 26th of which month and which year?
It's the 26th of 05/2012.
Now, what was submitted on the 26th of May 2012? So we go back to page 87. Can you just walk the chairman through what this document is?
What was submitted on that date, the purpose is to obtain approval to accept the proposal from Esteana with regard to the Vrede Integrated Dairy Project, and secondly, to enter into a partnership with Esteana to implement the Integrated Dairy Project in Vrede.
Yes. Now, I accept that you were traveling at this point in time, and you've annexed to your papers your passport details. Chairman, we won't look at them because I think it's correct. The reason they're annexed was because he was traveling in China. If I might just make that submission. Page 74 has the passport picture.
Okay.
So I think the commission can accept, Chairman, if it makes sense
after
to
all,
you that
he didn't sign the
he
document.
didn't sign
yeah.
it, and the reason was he was traveling in China. So I think instead of leading that evidence, I think the
Yeah.
chairman is happy to accept.
That's fine.
But I'd like you then to tell the chairman what you knew about this project. And when I say this particular project, it's called here the Vrede Integrated Dairy Project. Before you left for your trip abroad, first, and then when you returned from your trip abroad. So,
I'm sorry, Mr. Bashe, before we get there, if we go back to that block which has got your signature, Dr. Mustang, the person who signed there appears to have signed on your behalf, PP, and your name was put there. That gives the impression that you had authorized that person to sign on your behalf. Otherwise, if he or she was signing as the acting chief director in your position, one would have expected that he or she would have put her name or his name and written acting chief director, district services, or something to that effect. Do you have any comments to make about what one makes of that signature and what's written in that block?
Yes, no, thank you very much, Chairperson. I think that is why in my affidavit I've indicated that I have never authorized the person who signed there to sign on my behalf.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And when you left and you traveled, you had not been requested to put together this document?
No,
Okay,
no,
thank you.
not at all.
Okay.
can I take you to page 88, just to add to what the chairman has just asked you? Under point 6, you have a heading, Parties Consulted. The HOD, the CFO, the Chief Director, District Services, and the District Director. Now, you at the time were the Chief Director, District Services. Do you confirm that you were not consulted?
I was not consulted, Chairperson. I think that is why even the official has made a statement to confirm that he didn't actually consult with me. He was only instructed to compile the document and to sign it.
Okay. Before we leave this document, 2 questions. Now, these 3 blocks, is that a stamp that has your names on it anyway, or just, I'm trying to understand why your name would appear here even when you are out of office. Is that just a particular stamp that you use in the office?
It's a template, Chairperson.
Uh-huh.
I think it's a template. If it has got blocks like this, I think they use a template. There is always a sort of a template with the details, my details, the CFO, and the HOD. I think what they did, they just use that. So instead of putting the names of the person who actually was going to sign, they then put my name. That is why, in all fairness, he indicated that I am signing on behalf as an acting chief director at that time.
But was he acting chief director?
Yes, similarly, he was acting chief director at that time.
Yeah, but that's what he should have disclosed. He shouldn't have put your name there if he was not signing on your behalf. He should have put his own name and indicated that he was doing so in his capacity as acting chief director.
Yes.
Because as it stands, it looks like he was signing on your behalf, and therefore he had authority from you that he could submit this document on your behalf.
Okay, no, thank you very much, Chairperson. I think even the Chief Director, District Services, was actually referring to the acting, not necessarily to myself.
Well, they may have, I don't know, those people, don't they know if somebody is acting, you refer to them as acting chief director, don't refer to them as chief director.
Yes, yes.
If somebody is acting head of department, you don't refer to them as head of department. I would have thought that these people are people of the right level to appreciate those distinctions. Yeah, anyway, okay,
Thanks.
all right.
But I think also, Chairperson, if you allow me, then the issue was on number 7. Because
At
even
page
if
87.
this one, point number 7,
Page
the
88.
authority for approval,
Yes,
the same page 88.
yes.
Yes. So if you look at that, even if this one, for argument's sake, can submit or compile, but he has got no authority.
No, you don't understand, Dr. Maseteng. There is the authority to submit. There is the authority to recommend. There is the authority to approve.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yes. Yes.
So the approval, the authority to approve might vest with the head of department. But if you submit something, the first question is whether you are the right person to submit
yes,
that thing.
yes.
Do you have authority to submit that
submit
thing?
that, yes.
Because when you submit it, you associate yourself with that thing. So your name here is being associated with a proposal. It suggests that you initiated the approval. Not that you granted the approval, but you initiated the approval by submitting this document. You asked somebody to recommend. They recommended. You asked somebody to approve. They approved. So it says all this comes from you. Do you appreciate?
I tend to differ, Chairperson.
Yes.
That's not how it works.
Yes.
What is happening is I can instruct a person to submit.
Yes.
It's me who's instructing any person to submit to me.
Yes.
Because I cannot be a referee and a player. I cannot submit to myself. I cannot recommend to myself.
Yes.
But in terms of the government processes,
Yes.
everything that is submitted or submitted, it must first go to the CFO if it has got the financial implications. So that is always the case, and that is what is always happening in the government sector.
No, but if you prepare a document and you submit it, you are associating yourself with it.
I agree there. Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
I
You are
agree.
associating yourself with it, because if you don't submit it, there'll be no occasion for anybody to recommend it. there'll be no occasion for the person who must approve to approve. So you submit it, you are saying, this is what I think should happen. And then I'm asking my immediate senior to recommend, or whoever is supposed to recommend, and ultimately the approving authority to also approve. So you have the person who submits the proposal, you have somebody who recommends that the proposal be approved. You have somebody who actually provides the approval. But the person who provides the approval can say,
Yes.
I was at the end of the queue. So-and-so submitted this proposal, and I'm entitled to think that he looked at it properly and he formulated the proposal and submitted it to so-and-so because he was thinking that it should be approved. And so-and-so looked at it and recommended it. And I, as the person with authority to approve, then approved somebody that had already been submitted by somebody else and recommended by somebody else. So on the face of it, it associates the name of the person who submitted the proposal with the proposal. That's why it's important that if you've got nothing to do with it, it shouldn't reflect your name.
Okay.
It should reflect the name of the person who is submitting it. Okay.
Chairman, can I protect my witness?
Protect your witness.
And suggest, Chairman, that if an accounting officer did that, he or she would simply be rubber stamping documentation that came up from the bottom. That's the first point. But the second one is the more important one, Chairman. The facts, as set out in this witness's affidavit, speak to peculiar circumstances that you might want to consider to be exceptional, given the frame, the legal frame that you have set out.
No, what I'm saying is general. It's general. I'm talking general. But, the first point you raise is not really correct. An approving authority who says, I approved this after it was recommended by so-and-so, who got it from so-and-so who submitted it, doesn't necessarily rubber stamp. But that person is simply saying, I just didn't do it on my own. It had gone through certain stages, and those people, including somebody whose duty is to apply his or her mind to it, concluded that approval should be recommended. So if I've made any mistake in approving, I didn't just do it on my own. There were different stages, okay?
I accept that, Chairman.
Yes, yeah, okay, all right, thank you.
But can we then come to that exceptional circumstance?
Yes.
But can I also, Dr. Masiteng, as you explain your exceptional circumstances, I actually want to ask you to turn to the document that you in fact signed. This one was signed by somebody else. And that document, Chairman, we will find at Bundle A, and the signature, I think, is on page 4 of Bundle A, reference.
Okay, let's stick to reference bundle A.
Reference Bundle A, Chairman.
Which is under Exhibit AA.
Yes,
Yes,
Chairman.
I've got it. What page?
And then the signature that we are going to look at is on page 4, Chairman.
4.
Yes. I beg your pardon, page 5, Chairman.
Okay. Thank you.
Dr. Masiteng, are you there? It's page 5, paginated page 5, right at the top.
No, I don't think I have that.
Oh, the reference bundle.
It might not be having the right bundle. Look for
Not your
another
bundle, Dr. Masiteng. Reference bundle.
The reference bundle.
Yeah, somebody should
Reference
orientate
bundle
him.
A.
Okay, somebody will come and orientate you which one is bundle. Well, tell him about others as well, so you don't have to go there each time there's a reference to another bundle. let him know which ones and where to find the others.
And then please switch your mic on before you give your answer. Thank you. So we are now looking at a document that you in fact signed.
Yes.
And again, it's titled Approval to Accept the Proposal for the Establishment of Integrated Dairy in Vrede from Esteana. Terrible English, but anyway, that's what's written here.
Yes.
Please explain what this document is that you prepared. I take it you prepared it because your signature is there, and why you signed it. That's the issue the chairman raises in the example he gives, and this is your signature. Please explain the circumstances.
This document was actually accompanied by other documents.
Please tell the chairman which ones. It's important.
Yeah, tell us what the document is first.
This document was accompanied.
No, before you come to what accompanied it, tell me what this document is that you signed, the one that starts at page 2.
Oh, yes. This one is approval to accept the proposal for the establishment of an integrated dairy in Vrede from Esteana.
It's a it's a memorandum, is that correct? It's a document which you addressed to Mr. MP Tabete, head
Yes.
of the Department of Agriculture,
Yes.
whose purpose was, as stated there in bullet point 1, to get the head of the department to accept the proposal from Esteana / Paras with regard to the establishment of integrated dairy in Vrede, and bullet point 2, enter into a memorandum of agreement with Esteana / Paras to implement the integrated dairy project in Vrede. So that was the purpose of the document.
Yes, yes, Chairperson.
Okay, then you can carry on and talk more or tell us what other documents accompanied it.
Yes, Chairperson. This document was actually prepared in line with the supporting documents which were brought to my attention by the accounting officer.
Mr. Tabete.
Yes, Mr. Tabete.
Yes, tell us
And
what.
it was the agreement which has already been signed it's an agreement entered into between the Department of Agriculture and Esteana,
Yes,
which
that's
is
the document.
006.
That's the page 6, yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
and also it was accompanied by the project proposal,
Yes,
which is 26, which was already signed. If we go to
page 26.
page 34,
Oh, not page 26.
page 34, it was signed on the 15th of May 2012. There
I'm
was
sorry.
also,
I'm sorry. Page 34 is the end of a document. Where does it start?
Chairman, it starts on page 26.
Yeah, so it's the same document that I just mentioned where it starts. And
Yes.
you mentioned where it ends.
Yes.
Okay, all
it
right.
starts with 26, it ends with
Page 34. At page
34 with the signature at the bottom.
Yes, and whose signature is that?
This signature is Sanjeev Kutama.
Yes.
Yes.
Do you
And
know
also-
Mr. Gautam?
I don't know the person. And also there was an ESCO memo. I don't see the ESCO memo.
Exco memo.
Yes.
Okay, that's a
Which
memo.
was signed on the 13th, if I'm not mistaken, of June.
When you say Exco, are you referring to the Provincial Executive Council.
The Provincial Executive Council memo.
Okay.
Chairman, with your indulgence, do you mind very much putting the witnesses bundle on one side and then the reference bundles that we'll be referring you to on the other? Because it's sometimes a little easier for us to navigate between the two as we quickly find
Yes.
documents for
Yes.
you.
No, okay, I'm quite fine. What would you like us to do?
So I'd like you to go back to the witnesses bundle
I've got it here in front of me.
and
yes.
to go to page 86 of that bundle,
Okay, 86.
86,
Okay.
TJM 86, and the resolution that Dr. Masiteng refers to is on that page 86.
Okay, I'm at 86.
Yes.
Is that the EXCO memo that you were talking about?
This is the ESCO memo I'm referring to, which was brought to my attention by the accounting officer together with the supporting documents.
Yes. So there
Yes.
were 3 documents that were given to you. That was the agreement, which was already signed, the proposal, which was signed by Mr. Gautam.
Yes.
Yeah. And then this resolution of the Provincial Executive Council.
Yes, there was also a profile.
Can I ask you then to look at your bundle? You've actually included these documents in
Okay.
your bundle, Dr. Masiteng.
Okay.
So if you look at page 83 of your bundle, TJM 83, you'll find the company profile. 83 has the company profile. Top right-hand corner.
Yes.
And then if you look at,
That is the Esteana company profile.
Yes, that will be Esteana company profile. Yes,
Okay.
yes.
you had this document as well.
Yes.
Can I ask you to look at page 75, again, TJM, your witness bundle?
7.5, yes.
Yes, that's the project proposal
That's a project proposal.
that you've just pointed the chairman to, but we found it in the other file. Maybe we
Yes.
should stay with this file for now, Chairman.
Okay.
This is the one signed by Gautam on the 15th of May 2012.
Yes.
Yes, Chairperson.
So it was 3, or was it 4 supporting documents?
4 supporting documents.
Okay.
Yes, Chairperson.
Okay, so it was the agreement between the department and Esteana, and that the agreement was already signed.
Yes.
It was the proposal, it was already signed. It was the EXCO resolution, and then it was the Esteana company profile.
Profile, yes.
Yeah, okay.
So these are the documents that were before you when
Yes.
you signed
Yes.
that submission.
Yes.
Now, the question the chairman has been asking is, did you apply your mind to what you were submitting to the CFO for her to recommend to the HOD?
Or maybe we should, maybe we should say, how did it come about that you were given this and you ultimately signed the document?
Mike?
Yes, Chairperson. This brings us to the point that all along, if you look at all the documentations, I was not part. I only became part on this date. And the reason being, there was a stage I was out of the country for a period of a month, because I left on the 9th, I came back on the 6th. Now, what happened is that on my arrival, there was now this documentation which the HOD brought to my attention and said, look, already there is an ESCO on this matter. Already I have signed an agreement. Already there is this project proposal that has been developed. I am deviating. But at that time, it didn't come out very clear that he's deviating to implement this project. He just said, compile for me, I'm accepting the agreement, I'm accepting the proposal from these people, I am moving with them.
And deviating in this context, did it mean deviating from procurement procedures?
Yes, he was very clear to say, I am deviating, they are bringing
Yes,
money, we are also going to bring money, there is no any other company which is prepared to bring 200 million. I have already presented it to ESCO. I am deviating.
Okay, okay.
Yes.
So he made it clear to you
He make it very clear.
that this was a case where he was deviating from procurement procedures deliberately
Yes.
because for whatever reason he believed it was justified to do
Yes,
so.
yes.
Okay.
So the evidence, your evidence is the HOD can't submit to himself. The submission starts below him.
Yes,
And that's what you are asked to do, simply to prepare a submission on the basis of documents that were given to you.
yes, yes.
Do I understand you correctly to say that in addition, you recognize that there was a deviation at play in the submission that you were making? Did you recognize that, or were you simply putting documents together?
No. If you look at this, Chairperson, this document that was developed, it was subsequently replaced by the other. If you look at this one
Don't-
is
I'm sorry,
similar.
which one you are pointing
Yes.
to, what page?
The 02. The 02.
The one signed
on
by, what did you say, it was
Sir,
Skalkbeek?
yes, because I was not aware of that one which was signed on the 26th.
That is the one at page 2 of reference bundle A.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yes.
that is the,
You'll also find it at page 8-9, Chairman.
Yes.
TJM.
yes, I'll
8-9.
just stick, because he's using 2, I'll just stick to that one, yeah. For now, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so this is the document that you signed, and you were making a certain point about it. Just repeat that
Yes,
point, yeah.
this document, if you look at it, the purpose is to obtain
Sorry,
approval.
Dr. Masite, may I interrupt you? I do apologize. Not this document, so you must identify the document. It helps with the record. So just start the answer again, please, but identify which document you are looking at.
Or 02.
Page, the date on the document?
The date on the document is 05/07/2012. It's now July.
And that's the one with your signature.
This is the one with my signature.
Thank you. We
Yes,
know which
Chairperson.
document you're looking
Now,
at.
the point I was making is that if you look at this document and the one which was submitted by Mr. Skalkbeek, they are basically the same. So I
Yes.
didn't understood the instruction properly.
Yes.
So I submitted this document.
Yes.
He then brought it back and said, no, this is not what I want. I want this, the submission that we have compiled has already been compiled. What I want, I am deviating. Now there is a document, I don't know whether it's there, the submission now. You will see it was also signed at the same day. That is the one that he was very clear, and he brought this one back and said, no, this is not what I'm talking about. I am deviating.
Now, when you prepared this one at page 2, which you say is the same as the one that was signed by somebody else, had you seen the other one?
No.
They
I was-
just happened to be the same, but you had not seen the...
No, I was not aware of that one.
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh,
Chairperson, yes.
okay.
So I was under the impression that the thing that you can do now is to, given the documentations and so on and so forth, you can accept, you can also enter into, because the memorandum of agreement was already there. He was very clear to me to say, I am also entering into a memorandum of agreement with them. Yes, Chairperson.
Okay, continue.
Can we then, just for 1 minute, look at that resolution? The EXCO resolution.
That is at page 86 of the other bundle, the one with your statement, I think. Am I correct?
That is correct, Chairman. Because we've been talking about levels of authority and instructions being given,
Yes.
So it's at TJM 86,
886, okay. thanks.
TJM.
All
yeah.
right, thanks.
Your document.
I've got it.
What did you understand of this resolution in relation to the instruction you were being given? What was the import? Why? What was the relevance of this document?
Chairperson, my understanding is that, yes, you do have an ESCO resolution, and also it comes a directive, but it does not imply that you can take it at the face value and implement it. So that is why he was saying, I am deviating to ensure that I comply also with the ESCO resolution. It was the ESCO resolution, it is very clear, it is talking to the very same Friede Integrated Dairy Agribusiness Project. So my understanding was that as an accounting officer, he's saying, I understand, there is this commitment, however, I am now following this process, and the process that I'm following is to deviate.
Was the CFO, in terms of position, your equal or your senior? Just in terms of levels of authority. CFO, the Chief Financial Officer.
The CFOs are appointed in terms of the PFMA, even though we are equal with they are equal with the chief directors, but there is always that sort of a seniority.
Could she have refused to recommend what had been submitted by you?
Yes.
As chief director?
Yes, yes. That's what I was trying to explain. That if you submit to the person who recommends, the person who recommends can say no. It happens on several occasions if you initiate. But if in this case, if it's an instruction, the CFO also can say, yes, it's an instruction, but let's look at other processes and so on and so forth. And when she's fine, she can recommend, and then it goes for an approval.
Would it also be correct to say that the CFO has a greater responsibility to ensure that the supply chain management procedures are complied with?
They are actually residing in that chief directorate.
So where there is a deviation in terms of those procedures and the treasury regulations, it really is the duty of the CFO to engage in discussions with the HOD to discuss whether that deviation is regular or not.
Yes.
So the Chief Directorate's submission is not the last word?
No,
on
not
this.
at all.
At the end of the day, the HOD could also say, I've taken a totally different decision here,
It happens on several occasions.
despite having an EXCO resolution that says we approve of this project.
My understanding is that if you are having an ESCO resolution, it's like a court order, but it does not mean that you can take an ESCO resolution as it is. I always make an example of an ESCO resolution that says appoint 50 undergraduate. I cannot stand outside here on the street and take 50 undergraduate. I still have to say, look at the issues of agenda, the qualifications, and so on and so forth. But it's a must do, because it's an ESCO resolution. Otherwise, you are rendering the whole executive council useless in sitting in meetings and taking resolutions. But if there are other processes that you can follow if you don't agree. But it's quite a long process, because this was done in the presence of the executive councils and in the presence of the accounting officers, officers in most cases.
So it
Well,
would,
I'm sorry. So, but there may be a situation where the EXCO resolution tells you about the ultimate objective, says this is what must be achieved, but it doesn't tell you about the how.
The how part of it, yes.
then that's up to you to make sure that the manner in which you achieve that objective is a lawful manner.
Yes.
Yes. But of course, you may well have a situation where the ExCo resolution either makes it clear as to the how, or it might not make it clear, but there is no way of achieving that objective without breaking the law. You could have that situation as well, in theory.
In theory.
Yes.
Yes.
Because if the process which you must follow
Yes.
in order to appoint 50 graduates requires 3 months,
Yes.
and the ExCo resolution says within 1 week, appoint 50 graduates, then it prevents you from following a lawful procedure if you are going to comply with it, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Now, my understanding of the response that the Premier gave to the Public Protector on the deviation we speak of that the CFO ought to have interrogated more closely was that the supply chain management procedures allow for a wide range of exceptions. It's not a closed list. And it should not be interpreted as a closed list. The closed list being emergency situations, sole provider.
Yes.
I don't know if it's a fair question, but do you have a view on this? Because I know you are not the CFO. But would this be a correct interpretation?
I don't want to guess in this regard, honestly, Chairperson. I think I will be subjecting myself to speculations.
Yes. Okay.
That's fine. We're hoping Mr. Tabete will come in any event, and Ms. Lamini, and we can raise the same issues with them. But to then go back to the program itself, or the project itself,
Yes.
the Vrede Dairy project. Explain to the chairman where this project was located in the strategy of the department. And here I have in mind, I've heard of the address by the Premier in 2012 that spoke to this issue and to the Mahomaboom initiative or strategy. Please explain to the chairman where the Vrede Dairy project idea came from and where it fitted in the district services suite of projects.
Okay. No, Chairperson, let's start first with one of the key strategies in the province was to focus more on the agro-processing value adding. And Mahomaboom was actually initiated in 2011. So Mahomaboom was a strategy that deals with the mega, let's call them mega projects, as well as food security projects. And when it comes to the mega project, they must have an element of agro-processing value adding. So that is why when the project, I came into a picture after July. But my understanding was that Vrede Dairy was part of, is one of the projects under Mahomaboom as a strategic guide. It is not Mahomaboom, but it is one of the projects. In the same way as we are having broiler projects, as well as the hatchery, as well as the feedlots and so on and so forth. So the issue here was that Mahomaboom was developed to actually concentrate on more high impact project that could employ more than 100 people or so. So that is how Vrede Dairy actually came into being. It was one of the projects under Mahomaboom, which was actually initiated in 2011. If I may just, let me just take the chairperson through one of the issues that we are saying here. Chairperson, we are saying Mahomaboom, for instance, is a multi-year mega public and private partnership business concept which revolves around income generation through farming in the rural areas of the province and the creation of on and off-farm agribusiness, value chain, enterprises, and black economic empowerment. That is what the concept centered around. The total budget required for the implementation of Mahomaboom strategy, for instance, is more than 1.2 billion over a period of 4 years and has the potential of creating more than 10,000 decent and permanent jobs and more than 100,000 indirect jobs. That was the idea. So that is why when Friede Dairy was actually presented, it was a very lucrative and a good project that fit into this guide, Chairperson.
You see, Dr. Masiteng, the reason it's important to locate the Friede Dairy project within Mahomaboom is, as I understand matters, the Friede Dairy project became Mahomaboom simply because all resources were directed at the Friede Dairy project, certainly in the period 2012 to 2014. Would that be a correct summary of what happened?
No, that will not be the correct summary, Chairperson. We end up having an allocation called Mahomaboom. Under that one, you will have an allocation for Friede Dairy, but you will also have an allocation for mechanization, for livestock, and other agricultural activities. So it's not true to say now all the resources were channeled. No, there were also other initiatives which the grant itself was taking care of. This is to say, Mahomaboom is not Friede Dairy, but Friede Dairy is a project within Mahomaboom.
I think what Ms. Kabashe might have meant is that in the perception of many people, this Friede Dairy project became like, that's what they are talking about when you talk about this whole bigger project which has got various components, but in the perception of some people or many people, it seemed to represent the whole thing when in fact it wasn't the whole thing.
Yes.
You would agree with that?
Yes, I agree.
And that there may have been people with that perception, you would agree with that?
Yes, Chairperson.
Yeah, okay.
We will interrogate that matter further, Dr. Masiteng, with the financial people who were involved at the time. But I think where you can assist the Commission is in relation to what you were calling the grant just now. I presume you mean the CASP grant.
No,
Which grant?
I'm referring to the voted fund.
Coming from DORA.
It's a provincial allocation.
So you had the provincial allocation for agriculture.
Yes,
That's what you're calling the voted fund.
yes,
And you're saying from those funds, there was an allocation for Mahomaboom,
yes,
as there would be for other
yes.
areas. But the allocation for Mahomaboom, you say, did not go exclusively to the Friede Dairy Farm project in 2013-2014.
No, we didn't have Mahomaboom as an allocation at that time. I think it started in the 13-14 financial year.
But this is the point. Friede Dairy Farm was in existence as of the 5th of July, 2012.
Yes, you had an allocation under food security, which is a food security. That's why I said, that is why ultimately we had a Mahomaboom sort of a grant, which was catering for different projects. But Friede Dairy was was supported at that period under a normal voted fund, which was a food security and so on and so forth.
Let's take the, well, one, we normally stop at 4, but sometimes we go beyond that. I can go up to 5. Is that what you would like?
I would prefer that, Chairman.
Yes. Would you be fine with that?
Yes, yes.
Okay, all right. Let's take an adjournment now, and it's just after 4. We'll resume at 4:15. We adjourn. let's proceed. Maybe we could go up to 5:15 just to make sure that we have an hour.
I think it's doable,
Yes.
Chairman.
From
Yeah.
your side, Dr. Masing?
Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
And I think it's because much of the evidence is evidence other people should really be speaking to. The essential evidence from this witness really turned on those memos,
Okay.
submissions that he signed.
Okay.
But I think that some of what I'm going to explore in the next hour
Okay.
feeds into that memo.
Okay.
Excuse
okay.
me, Chairman.
No, that's fine.
You were explaining the vote that the Department of Agriculture gets. I also, however, want you to explain to us the CASP budget. So if you turn to your affidavit, page TJM 094, TJM, which are your initials, Dr. Masiteng, 094.
You must be consistent, Mr. Bashir.
I asked for permission, Chair, to straddle.
No, I accept that. I'm talking about the page numbers. If all along we've been saying
Yes.
page 86 without the TJM 00.
Absolutely.
So-
I apologize. You're correct, Chairman. It's the first time I used the zero.
Yeah, otherwise whoever reads looks for another page and not this one. So just to be consistent.
For the record, page 94. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Can you please explain this document to me? And I know it's looking at a particular year, 2013-14. But what's concerning me is the evidence you have given on what monies were used for Mahomaboom and what was used for the Friede Dairy project. So maybe this will explain or support what you're saying and help me understand it a bit better. What is this document? And is this a document that's generated every year?
Okay. Thank you very much, Chairperson, once more. This is actually a business plan framework for CASP. For all the projects, when you apply for funding, you use this template. Now, what happened is that
Please explain the acronym CASP.
it's Comprehensive Agricultural Support Program.
Thank you.
Now, what happened is that because internally, as the provincial department, we have to compile what we call a provincial business plan, of which Friede Dairy was then included into the provincial business plan as one of those projects that we have to present to national for funding. So that is why this business plan was then compiled with the amount. And if you look at the amount, the total amount talks to the ESCO memo, that 114 million. That is why for CASP, you would request 53 million, but you are saying DART will avail 60 million to give you the total of 114. This is the document which is always compiled by the agricultural economics of our department.
But when I read this page 94, I see the total CASP amount of 53,950,000. And then I see the total available budget at the bottom, which is 114 million. I also know that the department allocated 114 million over a 3-year period to the Esteana Dairy project. The amount above that 114 million reads 60,050,000. When I look at this document, it says to me, the 60,050,000 that ought to have gone to production inputs, mechanization, other infrastructure, and revenue enhancement is now going to form part of the 114 million that's going to go to Esteana because you had budgeted 114 million for Esteana.
Yes.
If I'm misreading it, please just help us understand what this represents.
Yes, You are correct, Advocate Clavas.
You see, because earlier you said to us, no, we put money into various items. And I know you're talking about the vote.
Yes.
But the point really about the Esteana project is that money was taken from other areas that the department ought to have been servicing and put into this one mega project because you had identified it as a mega project.
Yes. What is happening, Chairperson, is that, let us say, for instance, now, you see, I'm just trying to apply my mind here.
Yes.
I'm just assisting.
Yes.
What is happening, Mahomaboom would be, for instance, allocated 80 million for argument's sake.
Which would be for different components.
Which will be for different components for argument's sake. And then what this document is trying to say to us is that, yes, out of that, 60 will be utilized to top up the 53 and give you a total of 114.
I hear you.
So the total CASP budget for the 2013-2014 year was 53,950,000 rand. Is that correct?
No, Chairperson.
Uh-huh.
The total budget for CASP for that financial year, the allocation for the province, let me just look at the presentation that we made. That would be 108. 108 under the same document. That is the presentation that the department has made to DAF at that time. It will include quite a number of initiatives, of which dairy will be one of them, but not to say the allocation for the province was 53 million. It was more than that.
Where's the 108 to which you refer? Which page? You refer to 108, and I can't see 108 at page 94, where I see 53,950,000. Where is the 108?
It's annexure?
And it's written Annexure K.
Annexure
That
K.
Yes, Chairperson.
Okay.
That TJM 108 Annexure K.
Yes.
Yes. That is the presentation which was done on the 30th of January 2013
Yes.
to the National Assessment Panel.
I'm sorry, please tell me the page rather than the annexure. What page is
Page-
annexure K?
Page 108, Chairman, but like
Oh.
you, I cannot find the
Oh,
the
108
figure.
is the page number. I
Is
thought
the
it was
page
the
number.
amount of money, 108 million or something. Okay, all right. So at page 108 is the beginning of a certain document, and you say that document represents, does indicate the budget for CASP in regard to the
The province.
2013-2014 financial year.
Yes, Chairperson.
And where's the amount?
Then
is?
you go to 118. on the same-
118.
Yes, Chairperson.
Yes, I'm there.
Yes. Now you see the breakdown there.
Yes.
The breakdown begins to indicate to us that in total, on the conditional grants, the province received 206 million. But that 206 million, 8.5 million of it was for land care, of which 57 million was for Ilima Letsema, which is another conditional grant. So the rest would be CASP. Advocate.
Okay, there are two boxes there. You're talking to the bottom box, is that right?
The first, let's take the first one.
Financial year grants,
The financial year grant.
2013-2014, yes.
It will say CASP, the amount is 140 million. The allocation for the province.
Oh, well, there is something that's been blacked out at the top there.
Yes,
So
Chairperson.
And then on the side, it says Comprehensive Agricultural Support
Program.
Program. That is the long term for CASP.
for CASP.
Oh, okay.
And then the allocation for that financial year
Is 140.
is 140, of which 53 is then requested to assist the Vrede Dairy, not the whole budget.
Oh,
Yes.
oh, okay. It's 140,274,000
Yes,
for the
yes.
whole
For the whole
CASP.
province.
For
Yes.
the whole CASP.
Yes.
Okay, and then the 53,950,000 that we see at page 94 comes from that amount.
From the 140.
Yes,
million.
okay.
Yes.
Okay, so where it says total CASP on page 94, it means total contribution from CASP to this
To the
dairy
province.
project, yeah.
To the province.
To the province.
To the province. The province has received
Yes.
conditional grants
Yes,
every financial year.
yes.
Now you will go and present the projects
Yeah,
that you want them to be funded.
yes.
And once they have approved those projects, you then come back and enter into now the other processes of beneficiaries agreements and so on, because there is an approval at the national level.
So CASP comes from national level?
Yes, it comes
Okay,
from,
that
it's
140 comes from national,
a national allocation.
but it is allocated to the particular province. That's Free State only.
It's Free State only.
Okay.
Other provinces
So
might
the-
get 200.
The money sits with the national department, but when you have satisfied them that you have got appropriate
transfer.
projects that fall under CASP, and you have worked out how much is needed, then if they are happy, then they give you the money.
They transfer the money.
Oh,
Yes.
okay, now I understand.
Yes, but let's look at these documents again. So I've got one finger on page 94, another on page 118, and another at page 119.
119.
So if we go back to page 118, to the second block that's entitled District Budget Breakdown, we get to Thabo Mufutsanyane, page 118, 118.
Yes,
So I'm at the second block.
yes,
And so the allocation, this is per district. The allocation for Thabo Mufutsanyane is for dairy, pigs, soya,
yes.
and that's 66
That's
million.
66 million.
Okay.
Yes.
If you go over the page to 119, the second block again has commodities supported. We then get to dairy, 53,950,000.
Yes,
That is the figure that
That is-
corresponds to the one on page 94.
exactly.
So of the total budget, you say of 140 million
Yes,
that comes into province from CASP,
yes.
only 53,950,000 would go to the Vrede Dairy Farm.
Yes,
That's about 1/3 of the allocation.
that's about 1/3 of the allocation.
Yes.
But having given that 1/3 of the allocation, according to page 119 to dairy, it leaves very little for other projects. So the other projects that are supported, commodities supported, game, livestock, poultry, agro-processing, essential oils, all of those are Thabo Mufutsanyane projects that are supported by CASP.
You have to say yes.
Oh, yes, yes,
No-
Chairperson.
no- Nodding is not recorded.
So if CASP is providing 53 million, almost 54 million, for the Vrede Dairy project, and the total budget for the Vrede Dairy project is 114 million, where does the shortfall come from?
The shortfall will have to come from the voted fund.
Which portion of the voted fund?
The provincial allocation.
But it's itemized as well, isn't it? Or has it got general items so you can easily take the
Yes,
balance
let's
from
say,
that?
like I've indicated, if it's 80 million, for instance, you would say already I have this 53 million. Now I'm shortfall of 60. Then from 80, I am taking 60 to top up. That's how it works in most cases.
You know, the reason I have a real interest in these numbers is because when I go back to the documents you say you were given when you made your submission, I look at the feasibility study, for instance, that you had. The feasibility study, in fact, you didn't have the feasibility study because the feasibility study was only concluded in October of 2012. Chairman, if I might just find the document.
Yes.
And I know you are simply assisting, Dr. Masiteng, and we will be leading the same evidence with other witnesses. The reference bundle, Chair, is reference bundle B, and the page is 482.
I've got it.
It comes back to understanding not just your approval or your submission, but the approval of the project. Because if you are saying that the intention is to have a bankable project, a commercially viable project that also uplifts the people of Vrede, one, you need to have the money for it, which is why we're looking at the CASP allocation, and you've mentioned the vote. But more importantly, the underlying premise for initiating the project has to be sound. You would agree? Dr. Masiteng?
Yes, Chairman.
If I ask you to look at page 546 of that same feasibility study.
546.
546. Just above conclusion, there's a little subheading that's part of the financial performance projected for this project. They say here that it would take 12 to 14 months for the dairy to become operational. This would, I'm reading what's written here, this would result in a loss of 8.48 million in 2012 to 2013 and 1.83 million in 2013 to 14. Now, this is a feasibility study that was done. The questions that arise in my mind are the following. When you look at the prospects of this project at any point becoming a commercially viable project, which I understood to be the intention of the department, and the feasibility study itself tells you from the first 114 million that you're going to put into this project, in the first year you're going to lose 8.48 million. And in the second year, you're going to lose another 1.83 million. And I really am just looking at one aspect. I'm not even looking at the whole recommendation. Doesn't that require, at some level, maybe not at your level, some interrogation, the viability of the project, given the limited funds you have?
Like you're correctly indicating, remember you have a professional services which then has to come in and interrogate this. The district services will have to wait for the completion certificate. So you're correct, I agree with you. the economist in this case will have to look into all the issues that.
The economist sits in district services.
No,
Where
they
does the
sit under
economist sit?
professional services. That's another chief directorate.
So the economist must be able to look at a feasibility study like this
Yes,
and make recommendations on the bankability of a project like this and the commercial viability
yes.
of a project like this.
Yes, Chairperson.
Do you know if that happened?
No, I will be speculating.
You see, because this particular feasibility study is dated October 2012.
Yes, Chairperson. The issue would be when you develop this business plan, you also have to take into consideration other supporting documents. So that's why I'm afraid to say, yes, they did look into this, because this was done in October. The business plan was developed for 13-14. So they might have taken into consideration quite a number of documents. That will include also an analysis of this. But I'm speculating, Chairperson, and I'm afraid to do that to the Commission.
Yes, Dr. Masiteng, I've heard your evidence that you were given documents, you were asked to make a submission, you made the submission and passed it on to the next level. That's the essence of what you have said. And that you did not interrogate
No,
the documents that you were given.
No, what I didn't interrogate the document. The instruction was very clear. I have this. I have satisfied myself. Just compile for me this deviation.
Yes. I think with respect to this project, or this aspect, the financials, we'll deal with it with a different witness, Chairman, because I don't think that Dr. Masiteng can take this point any further from where he sat in 2012. Can I?
The one point I wanted to raise is this. To the extent that you were asked by the HOD to prepare a document where he made it clear to you that he was deviating from the procurement procedures, was your understanding that he needed something, he needed a document that he would adopt as his own, and all you would be was simply a compiler of the document yourself? Or was the position that you understood that you would, by compiling the document, become also yourself one of the people who would be said to have made it possible for approval to be granted or for the deviation to happen?
Not in this case, Chairperson. In this case, I am a compiler.
Yes.
Because remember, in the first place, there were documents which were completed already.
Yes.
So I didn't have a say on those ones. I didn't have the inputs, whatever.
Yes.
It was just to compile.
Yes.
Yes, Chairperson.
So you saw your job as simply
A compiler in this case.
and you thought everything was, so to speak, his.
Yes, Chairperson. Yes.
Okay.
In the normal course of things, however, for a project of the size of Esteana, you would have a planning session long before anybody signed any contract. Am I correct?
Yes.
You would apply the plan, or in fact, it would have been drawn from the strategy of government, whatever you put into the plan. you would have gone through the budget to make sure you had the money. This is in the normal course. You'd make sure you have the money to sustain the project. But in this instance, none of these things preceded the signing of the contract with Esteana.
Chairperson, I'm also disadvantaged in this case because I was not in the picture, Chairperson. I was not in the picture from
Yes.
when the beneficiaries were identified, when meetings were held. I only had one meeting with the beneficiaries, which what Ndadela Amin was talking about. That was in October 2017. That was my first meeting with them,
Yes.
which is not a surprise because I'm a
Yes.
chief director. I have directors
Yes.
who every now and then meet with them. So in this case, I only came into a picture after. So it's a little bit difficult.
Yes.
I'm actually
Yeah.
cornered, Chairperson.
Yes. Well, if you don't know, you're not cornered. You just say you don't know. But I either now or after the question, if you want to take the question further, I just want to go to the document that you prepared after the HOD said, no, not this one, because that one had been done. But it depends whether Mr. Bashe still wants to take that question further that she had asked you.
Not this
Not the
particular one,
question.
Chair. I think I should move on to one or two other aspects.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
May I find out where that document is? We saw the one which you said the HOD rejected and said that one had already been prepared, and he asked you to prepare another one. Where is that one?
You're looking for the one that you had
The one
drafted.
that includes deviation. That one does not talk to deviation. There is the one that talks about the same document, same date, but that one now talks about the deviation.
Because he wanted you to compile a document that would show that there were grounds to deviate. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes.
Chairman, with your leave, let me just go through the file quickly.
Or what we can do, if your learned colleagues can look for it, we can move on. You can ask other questions, and then we'll come back, and maybe they will have found it when we come back. Okay, let's move on to other questions. We'll come back to it.
Chairman?
Yes.
If we might then just explore your understanding of an implementing agent. You mentioned this right at the outset. You said you understood Esteana to be an implementing agent. What's the importance of that, Esteana being an implementing agent?
An implementing agent takes, is sort of project manage, takes charge of the implementation of the project from the word go up to its completion. And once, that will include the appointment of the service providers, that will include also the purchase or the procurement of material. And once that has been completed, now you will have, the engineers are always with the levels of construction. But once that completed, there must be a completion certificate. So in this case, Esteana was appointed to do the feasibility study, to do the business planning, to do the water issues and so on and so forth. The way I looked, I'm just saying these things, Chairperson, based on the document that I've seen.
Yes.
It was appointed actually to do almost everything and then bring a product to say, here is a product, now bring your own beneficiaries and department, I'm out.
Well, maybe when you say I'm out, you may be answering the question that I wanted to ask. Why Esteana would do the feasibility study or would be the implementing agent when in fact they are to benefit from the project, they are party to the project? Shouldn't the implementing agent be somebody else? Or is it my ignorance of how these things are done in government?
Chairperson, your analysis is correct. I won't be able to respond to that.
But you look like you have something to say. Do you want to say what you are thinking?
Not as such, Chairperson. I was saying, you're
Yes.
correct in your analysis.
Yes.
To say, in instances I appoint you as an implementing agent, you must actually, we must be clear, you do up to this far, and then after that you get out. Then in case you want to participate further,
Yes.
then you can indicate and say, I want to bring in my this so that I can buy in these shares and so on and so forth.
Yes, okay, thank you.
You see, part of the chairman's difficulty is my difficulty as well, that you have Esteana as an implementing agent and a management agent. But not only that, you also have the same people who prepared that company profile you looked at, that feasibility study that you looked at, the business plan that you looked at. So all documentation that has been prepared is given to, is being assessed. At the end of the day, a decision is taken to give the project to the same people who had no competitors who prepared this documentation. It's very incestuous, the manner in which this was carried out.
That is why, Chairperson, I wanted to limit my answer to the question, what is the implementing agent?
Well, we want you to assist us with as much information as possible, including telling us whether, to your knowledge, the way things were done in regard to this project, including the roles that Esteana played, was the correct way of doing things. What was done wrong? What deviated from the norm? What was the normal way of doing these things? And what were the procedures which were supposed to be followed? Who qualified to do what? Because it just seems that Esteana was taking roles where, which should be done by somebody who doesn't have an interest in the project, but Esteana had an interest in the project.
Yes, Chairperson. When you look at the setup, I'm appointing you as an implementing agent for a project of, let's say, 570 million. But you are saying to me, I think this is a good investment. I also want to put in 200 million. Fairly speaking, you would say, this sounds good. Are you experienced in this kind of an activity and so on and so forth? And if you say, yes, I'm experienced, I've got market, I've got 200 million over and above what you're going to invest, you might be attracted to enter into such a deal, Chairperson. But in instances whereby you don't bring anything, then it becomes a problem.
Yes, but also, why should you take my word for it? Why shouldn't you, if you don't have the knowledge or expertise to make an assessment whether I have the expertise and knowledge that I say I have, why don't you go to somebody else and say, make an assessment of this person who wants me to spend millions on a certain project and says he has a lot of experience and he will put in some money as well. Just give me an assessment. Is this person the right kind of person to be involved with? Do they have the kind of expertise and experience that is required? Wouldn't you be expected to do that?
Yes, Chairperson. That is why when you look at, I think it's a profile, there is a statement there that they have also entered into a memorandum of agreement with the paras, which have got all the knowledge in as far, which are actually leading. I'm just giving
Yes,
what
yes.
I have also checked and so on and so
Yes,
forth.
yes.
So by so doing, you are saying, okay, I've got this one, but I also have, this one has partnered with this one that I recognize, that I respect, who's actually in the big league and so on and so forth. So those are some of the things. I'm just giving
Yeah.
the perspective, Chairperson,
Yes.
as you have requested me to do.
Yes.
Other than that, I don't see any other reason.
Yes, but tell me, you are now acting head of the department, and maybe by virtue of that position, you now have access to some documents that you might not have had access to as chief director in regard to this project. To your knowledge, is there any document in the custody or possession of the department which shows or which came from Paras, signed by Paras people legitimately, in terms of which they said they were party to this whole arrangement with Esteana?
I've never seen one myself, Chairperson.
You have never seen
I've
one?
never seen one, but I've seen the statement in the profile and where it says Esteana have just entered into a memorandum of agreement with the Paras.
Yes.
Yes, but I've never seen the memorandum of agreement between Paras and Esteana.
Do you-
In fact, Chairman, if it might assist you, page 284 of the reference bundle A has got a memorandum of understanding, not agreement, understanding, signed by Esteana and Paras. This document was submitted to the department. It's bundle,
What page?
reference bundle A, page 284.
Yes.
But the essence of this memorandum of understanding, Chairman, as I've read it, is that it is valid for 1 year.
Yes.
It is signed. It's actually, if you look
are you
at
looking
page
at it as well?
295, Chairman,
I'm sorry, are you also looking at it?
Yes, I'm looking
Yes,
at it,
okay,
Chairperson.
yes.
page 295 has the signatures, but the date is not legible.
295.
295, Chairman.
Yes, I see, yes.
Oh, Chairman, if you go to 285, this memorandum of understanding is dated 11th of April, 2012. 11th of April, 2012, page 285.
Yes,
So it's an April 2012 document. The parties to this document are Paras and Esteana. Mr. Sanjeev Gautam is the authorized signatory for Esteana, and Mr. Gajinder Kumar is the authorized signature for Paras, which is also known as VRS Foods Limited, page 295.
Now, have you seen this document before?
No,
You are seeing it for the first time?
no, I'm seeing it for the first time this week.
Yes. Now, obviously, you have looked at it, Mr. Bashe.
I have, Chairman.
Excuse me. Does it, in substance or effect, say that Paras and Esteana are entering into a partnership or some cooperation relating to the Friede Dairy Project, Friede Farm Dairy Project?
It does, Chairman. It says that they will enter into an association they don't call it a partnership. So
Yes.
Esteana would be similar to an agent. As and when they needed expertise, they would ask the Paras people to assist them with expertise. That's the essence.
It's general. Is it general? It's not
is-
specific to this particular project.
It is, to the extent, Chairman, at 285,
Yes.
that it says that Esteana at paragraph B, so you've got an A, B, and C. It says that third line, well, Esteana will play an active role in identifying and securing opportunities in the territory, being South Africa, and the company will assist Esteana with the technology and commissioning of those identified opportunities.
Yeah, that still doesn't say anything about this particular project.
They do mention the dairy.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
They do, Chairman.
Oh, have you picked it up somewhere?
Yes, I've picked it up somewhere where they are saying the company has been, that is A, under yes,
Yes.
that is under, it says the company has been in the business of implementing dairy projects and production and marketing of dairy products.
Yeah. Chairman, if I might be of assistance, page 287, the product means a dairy project and dairy products. The project refers to the strategic partnership between Esteana and the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development in the Free State Province of South Africa to implement a dairy project in the province.
Oh, okay, so at least that is specific.
Yes.
But you made the point that it's for 1 year.
It is a 1 year. My
And,
reading of it at the time, it is
And the project was going to be for a much longer period.
a 3-year project, Chairman.
Yes, yes.
And Chairman, the question you really asked at the outset is there a document that we know comes from Paras
Yes.
and can be authenticated by
Yes,
Paras?
yes, yeah, that's the,
That's
because
your question.
even though there might be somebody's signature here who purports to be a director, well, I see it just says director, and then there's something written, I don't know what. So the question is, was this authenticated? Well, was this authenticated? Did anybody do the homework that was supposed to be done to make sure that Paras was party to this agreement and would provide? As far as you know, are you able to indicate whether anybody did that kind of homework?
No, Chairperson, I'm unable to.
You are unable to
Yes.
say. And you have not seen anything in the records relating to this project that tells you that homework was done.
No, Chairperson.
Yeah.
Except the mentioning of Paras.
Paras, yes, yes. Do we even know whether the department knew who Paras was, other than what they may have been told, either by Esteana people or by those who may have supported the idea of this project? Do we know anything along those lines? Do you know anything from yourself?
No, Chairperson.
You don't know.
Do you know as a fact that Mr. Peter Tabete visited India to go and speak to the Paras people at Paras? Do you know anything about that?
No.
Okay. Well, I don't know from the legal team and the investigation side, but it may be important that communication with Paras be made. so that they can say whether they know anything about this?
Chairman, a letter was written to Paras. It should have been about, if not 3 weeks ago, in that region.
Yes,
Last I knew, we were still waiting for them to respond.
yes,
What the media has inferred is that Paras has denied completely having
Yes.
anything to do with this dairy farm
yes,
or with
yes,
South Africa.
yes,
But we have sent a letter out,
Yes.
Chairman, as the Commission, and
Yes.
we're waiting for a response.
okay,
What we've also done, Chairman, is try to find out if this particular Mr. Kumar might
Yes.
have been in the country in
Yes.
April of 2012.
yes,
And therefore, he signed this document while he was in South
Yes,
Africa in
yes.
April of 2012.
yes,
We will be coming back with the information that we source.
yeah,
Mr. Peter Tabete really is the person who can assist with much of this information.
yes. Of course, also, it's necessary to just check with Paras whether they had anybody by that name around that time.
We have Googled, Chairman, and yes, if he's not the founder, he is a senior person in
Yes.
Paras,
Okay, well,
Mr. Kumar,
let's hope Google is reliable enough.
which is why the investigators have, through the
Have sent a letter.
Secretariat, sent a proper letter out.
No, that's fine.
Making inquiries on behalf of the
Okay,
Commission.
that's fine. But what is important is that the acting head of the department, even though he might not have been acting head at that time, the acting head who has access to all the records of the department insofar as this project may be concerned, says he has not come across any document that suggests that any authentication was done. Okay, thank you.
Chairman, I've just got a few short questions left. The
Yes.
first being, Dr. Masiteng, do you know anything about the registration of Mahomaboom Pty Limited as a company on the 11th of October 2013?
I don't know that. I only learned from when you were asking me, Chairperson. It was for the first time.
Yes, that's fine. Do you know of Mr. Kamal Vasram? He is the director, sole director of Esteana.
I was introduced to Mr. Kamal by the Hawks on the 14th and the 15th. I don't know him. It was for the first time I see that person.
14th and 15th of this
That
month?
was the 14th of February 2018,
Okay,
on the Valentine's Day.
yes,
And also I met the other group on the 15th. That was on my son's birthday. And that was for the first time I see the family related to the Guptas. It was for the first time.
In
So I-
court.
in,
This was in court.
that was in court. Yes, I was taken to Joburg where there was other group there. That's why I'm saying I was introduced to the Guptas by the Hawks. I've never seen them after that.
Do you know of Mr. Chandrama Prasad, who is reputed to have been the project officer of Esteana
Yes.
at the farm?
Yes, there was a visit I made, and then I found him there as a project manager, and also to the offices of the department. He also went there.
Now, there's a witness who will come and say that Mr. Prasad knew nothing about dairy, and that Esteana, as an IT company, knew nothing about dairy. Was that your assessment when you visited the farm and found Mr. Prasad there?
At that time, I think there was a vet also who had an experience on the animal side. I think, in my opinion, I was quite happy with the way he was explaining, analyzing the diseases and what he's dealing with and so on. But with Prasad, I didn't see any dairy except a manager,
The person who was giving you an explanation was the vet, not Prasad.
was the vet.
well, Mr. Jankelson indicated when he gave evidence that Esteana was actually an IT company. It had nothing to do with farming and with, dairy farming. Do you know anything about that?
Chairperson, I also learned about that. Quite frankly, I was not aware until I saw it on the media and so on and so forth, but I was not aware at all about that.
Yes.
Yes, Chairperson.
Then there is
Yes.
Mr. Ashok Narayan, who is said to have been an economic advisor in the Premier's office. Have you met him?
I struggle to even, Ashok, I might have met him, but not maybe like discussing or whatever.
Well, you are the acting head of the department now. Would it shock you if somebody in your department gave a dairy farming project to an IT company? Or not necessarily?
To implement as an
To
as
do
a-
what Esteana was supposed to do here?
Chairperson, if I let me put it like this: if you give it to a person who does not have that experience, there must be an assurance that that person will project manage and use the expertise to implement the project.
But normally, wouldn't the position be that you would want to give a job to somebody who has that expertise and experience?
Preferably, Chairperson.
Yes. If you deviated from that, there would have to be proper justification, which could happen maybe where you want to give people who have not been given opportunities before, but then you take precautions to make sure that the job will be done.
Yes, Chairperson.
Yes.
Yes.
So as we talk, as we speak now, do you know of any justification why an IT company could have been given a job for dairy farming?
My apology once again, Chairperson. I was not in the picture at all.
Yes.
Yes, Chairperson.
Yes. But you now have records. You are the acting head. You have access to the records. Does it look like there was justification to give this job to Esteana?
Chairperson, except the fact that they are also bringing in their contribution, and they have partnered with a much more experienced strategic partner in the form of a Paras. Otherwise, there is nothing that I can
Yes,
deduce.
but are you saying because they were going to spend their own money on the project and because they were relying on Paras, who was said to have the expertise,
Yes, Chairperson.
because of that, you would say there was justification?
I would say yes, there was
Yes.
reasons to consider.
That is assuming that Paras has the expertise and that indeed it was party to the project.
Definitely, Chairperson.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And you would have made sure you authenticate
Yes, Chairperson.
whether Paras is really party to this thing.
Yes, Chairperson.
And I wonder whether, in addition, the department would have wanted to make sure that Paras also signs into some documents just other than having their own arrangement with Esteana.
Yes, you're correct, Chairperson.
So that because if Paras has an arrangement or agreement with Esteana only, if they have a fight and Paras pulls out,
Yes,
you won't know necessarily.
yes.
You might not know. You may know, you might not know. Whereas if Paras has signed something with you as well,
Then, yeah.
then you have a way of knowing when they've pulled out, and then you know we can't continue with these ones alone because they don't have the expertise.
I agree with your analysis, Chairperson.
Yes, thank you.
Chairperson, also interesting is the fact that the FDC took over after Esteana left. Was the FDC the type of entity that could do the work you expected to be done at the farm?
If we look at the ESCO memo also, the whole idea of bringing FDC, it was to instill a business element into the projects itself. That was the main purpose. And also, if you look at the agro-processing value adding, that is partly the mandate also of the FDC. So FDC was brought in to actually instill that element of a business so that the project can sustain itself. The project can begin to do what is intended for, that is to benefit the beneficiaries and also to benefit other milk producers. Because the idea was to see to it that the processing plant is in operation so that you can begin to collect the milk and process it there and supply the school feeding schemes. Those were the things which were, I'm saying the whole idea was actually very good.
Well, once Esteana had pulled out, I assume that that meant Paras also pulling out to the extent that Paras may have been part of the project.
Yes, Chairperson.
Now, Paras was relied upon for the expertise and experience required to run this project.
Yes.
Is that right? Yes. Who remained who had the expertise and experience that Paras had provided, as far as you know?
That was the project manager. Because the project manager,
Is that Mr. Prasad?
yes, the CP continued with the FDC.
Mr. Prasad had no qualification in dairy or dairy farming.
Yes, I'm just saying, from that movement of Esteana now out, you had a project manager by the name of Prasad. Now Prasad, FDC is taking over. You still have Prasad. I'm just responding to that one. But in terms of what the chairperson wants to find out, I would say, I would go back to your analysis and say, if we did have a document that also a tripartite like, we were going to be in the position to say, you can go, but remember, we still have an agreement with you. You need to complete the following outstanding activities.
Yes, but my question is a slightly different one, is Esteana is pulled out. With Esteana pulling out, Paras pulled out.
Yes.
That's my understanding.
Yes.
The expertise on the basis of which the expertise that Paras was thought to bring in is now gone. Who remained or who was there in regard to the project with the expertise and experience that was required, which would take the place of Paras? Was there anybody?
No, that's what I'm saying, Chairperson. The only people who remained were the people who were part of that, let's call it partnership of Esteana Paras. That the whole team that was working then was never sort of relieved with the Esteana. They remained with
they
the
have
FDC.
the necessary expertise and experience.
Except the experience, having learned, having started with the project. But the expertise and so on, I don't think
Yes.
they had that expertise.
Yes.
Yes.
Do
Because the
you-
expertise will include also the issues of marketing and so on and so forth.
Do you know whether since then, because I was told that the project continues, do you know whether since then steps have been taken to ensure that the project has the expertise or experience that is required for it to operate viably?
Yes, Chairperson. What we did in terms of also the court order, the department is now in charge of the project. That is
Yes.
in line with the court order.
Yes.
We have sent the senior managers responsible for research And also some of our researchers, they are the ones who are now assisting on the dairy project.
So now the necessary expertise and experience is there?
Is there, Chairperson?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Have your learned friends found the document they were looking for?
No, they have not. They have not, Chairman, and I must apologize. I know we have seen that document, and Dr. Masiteng knows that we have. But I think, Chairman, it's a fair question to ask him, just to give you a summary of what he thought the deviation could entail.
Well, did
What-
you say it is in the bundle?
It is not in this bundle,
It is not in this
Chairman,
bundle,
but
or
I-
any of the bundles?
or any of the bundles that you have, Chairman.
Oh,
And I do
okay.
apologize because I'm
Yes.
very sure we have that document
With-
somewhere in the other documentation.
Yes.
Yes.
well, I saw you holding some document there. Is it the document?
Yes, Chairperson.
Oh, okay. Then copies can be made. Have you seen it in any of the bundles that you looked
No.
at? Okay, but you have got, is there a copy?
Which document are you referring to, Dr. Masiteng? I just want to be sure we're talking about the same document.
Well, somebody can
The
just
one,
show it to you.
there was a question from the Chairperson that you had 2 submissions.
Okay.
The second one that included
Yes.
the deviation.
Yes, that's the one now
Yes.
I was looking for.
Then I'm satisfied. It's the correct one.
Yes, yes. Okay. Can I have a look at the document? At your copy, I'll bring it back.
Chairman, can I ask him 2 short questions that we
Yes.
can just dispose of?
Yes, that's fine.
Mr. Dlamini referred to you in his evidence yesterday and said you had met him and spoken to him outside a hall just before meeting. Do you confirm that that discussion did take place?
Yes, I confirm that.
And what was that discussion about?
No, when I arrived there, I was informed that, remember it was for the first time I meet with the group, and I was informed that Mr. Dlamini is actually the one who's leading the group. And I could sense that the venue is too small. And I then said, okay, it's fine, request Mr. Dlamini to come here so that we can agree on the venue. I was a little bit surprised on the issues of, we don't discuss where do you belong to with the farmers, not at all. We are not allowed to do that as government officials. It doesn't matter which political party are you affiliated to. What is fundamental is the service that you are requesting.
Then the other important aspect is the beneficiary agreement. The
Yes.
chairman was interested in understanding how you came to sign that beneficiary agreement.
Yes,
As soon as the chairman finishes reading, can you please give him an explanation?
okay.
Copies of the document will be made, and I suggest that we include it in the bundle.
The reference bundle, Chairman?
Well, you can decide whether in his in the file that has got his statement or in the reference bundle, but it should be included. It is important. But I just want to ask some questions. I see, Dr. Masiteng, that, excuse me, the document is dated 5 July 2012, which I think is the same date as the other document.
Yes.
And it's addressed to Mr. M.P. Tabete, the head of Department, Agriculture, exactly the same way as the other one. Is that correct?
Yes, Chairperson.
And in terms of the purpose, it appears that it has a third purpose which the other document did not have. Is that
Exactly,
right?
Chairperson.
But the first 2 bullet points under the purpose would be the same as the other document.
Yes,
Is that
Chairperson.
right?
Yeah.
The third purpose says it's to get approval from the head of department to deviate from the normal supply chain management processes and procedure and appoint Esteana/Paras to implement, establish integrated dairy in Friede. You remember that?
Yes, Chairperson.
And on page 2, it says, among other things, the department, in consultation with Esteana/Paras, have identified 4,400 hectares of municipal land in Friede. And then in the next paragraph, it says, Paras' involvement in milk industry will improve milk productivity locally, provincially, nationally, and internationally. Then it says a lot of things about Paras' involvement in the international market, including Germany, France, Turkey, Belgium, and so on. And then in that same paragraph on page 2, that is the middle paragraph, it says, the Paras are internationally recognized and would like to maintain that recognition. It is against this background the department is seeking to deviate against the normal SCM processes and procedures and enter into a memorandum of agreement with Esteana/Paras to implement and manage the operations of the project during its life cycle. That's part of what it says. Then and then on page 3, paragraph 4, the department has set aside 30 million rand under Mahomaboom in the current financial year 2012-2013 for this initiative. The intended period for the completion of this initiative is over a period of 3 years. 5, all relevant role players will be informed about the outcome of this submission. 6, parties consulted the executive management of the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development, Pumelela Local Municipality Management, and the management of Esteana/Paras. That means all of those have been consulted. And then under paragraph 7, the heading is authority for approval. Then it says the authority of approval is vested in the head of Department Agriculture. Paragraph 4, there is a recommendation. That is now 8. It is recommended that approval is granted by the head of department. 2, bullet point 1, accept the proposal from Esteana/Paras with regard to the establishment of integrated dairy in Friede. And bullet point 2, enter into a memorandum of agreement with Esteana/Paras to implement the integrated dairy project in Friede. Bullet point 3, to deviate from the normal supply chain management processes and procedure and appoint Esteana/Paras to implement, establish integrated dairy in Friede. And then below that is are 3 blocks similar to the ones we saw in regard to in the other document. The first block says submitted by, and then there's a signature, and then says Dr. T.J. Masideng, GM District Services. Then the next block says recommended / not recommended, and not recommended is crossed out, which means it's being recommended. And there's a signature, and it says Miss S. Lamini, CFO, DARD. The next block says approved / not approved, and there's a signature, and it says Mr. P.M. Tabete, HOD, Agriculture. Now, I've said that under paragraph 8, there is a recommendation made.
Yes.
Who is making that recommendation?
It's the CFO.
No, that's before the block. I know you don't have the benefit of looking at the document, but as I understand it, from the beginning of the document, you are the one who is speaking here, isn't it? who is writing here.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So you are saying these things on page 1 and page 2.
Yes.
Okay? And page 3, you are saying all of these things. Then we come to 8. There is a recommendation under paragraph 8 on page 4. And it says, it is recommended that approval is granted by the head of department.
Yes, is granted.
2.
Yes.
And then there are those 3 bullet points.
Yes.
And then at the bottom, there are those 3 blocks.
Yes.
So I'm asking the question, who is making that recommendation under paragraph 8?
Is the HOD. The HOD is the one who is saying, the recommendations, you will be saying, Chairperson, if you are saying it is recommended that approval is granted, yes, it means the HOD. If you are,
Can
if
he
you
be
are saying,
recommending to himself?
yes, most probably, yes, yes.
You say he is recommending to himself?
Yes, remember, what is happening with this kind of submissions in the department? You are very clear as an accounting officer that this is what I can recommend.
No,
If-
but the HOD approves. I thought that was the understanding.
Yes.
He does the approval.
Yes, of what he is supporting. You don't just approve anything.
Yes, but but documents such as this emanate from a lower level.
Yes,
Is that correct?
yes, that's correct.
Okay, and maybe without talking about this one in particular, but generally, they would emanate from a lower level. And if the requirement is that before they reach the HOD, they must go through somebody else who must make a recommendation,
Yes,
then the person who initiates the document is actually the one who is seeking a recommendation from somebody and ultimately approval from the head of department. I'm talking generally now.
yes, I
Let's
understand
leave
you
this one
clearly.
out. You understand?
You are correct, you're 100%
And I'm correct.
correct.
Yes,
Yes,
yes. Now, I'm saying to you, I am looking at this document on the basis that that was his journey as well.
Yes, Chairperson.
And then I asked the question, who therefore was making the recommendation that is at paragraph 8?
In the normal processes.
No, I'm back now on this document.
On this one,
Yeah.
it means the CFO in this case
Yes.
is now recommending to the accounting officer, and the
Yes.
accounting officer is approving.
Yes, but the CFO did not write these things here.
Exactly.
That's correct.
Yes.
They were written by somebody else.
Yes, what is happening in most cases, such a submission cannot be recommended by the CFO
Yes.
if she does not have inputs on it.
Yes.
It can go to and fro 10 times
Yes.
until she's saying, I am happy.
Yes,
And the
yes.
same applies to the HOD.
Yes,
The HOD can even decide to say, I'm no more approving it, and then return it.
You see, if there was no block here saying submitted by, and with somebody's signature there, I would say, and all that we had was the CFO's signature and the approval, then I would say that I need to look at only the 2 if I want to find out who is speaking, who is saying it is recommended that approval is granted by the head of department. I would look at those who are here.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, the fact of the matter is that there are 3 people here. Yourself, the CFO, and the head of department. The CFO has recommended. The head of department has approved. So my impression is that the person who is making the recommendation at paragraph 8 would be the compiler of the person who submits the document So I want you to comment on that. Why should I not read this along those lines?
You are correct, Chairperson, with your analysis to say,
Yes.
if, for instance, let me say I'm requesting a car, a subsidized vehicle,
Yes,
then I will submit. It's not even necessary because we have a policy now to
Yes,
say
yes.
you don't need 100 people signing
Yes.
documents.
Yes.
They will just maybe submit. It will go to the director. It will go to the chief director, but it still has to go to the CFO. The CFO is the last person who will then recommend to the HOD. That is under, let's categorize under a normal
Situation.
submission.
Yes,
Which
yes.
I want.
Yeah.
It's me who's requesting a pen. It's me
Yes,
who's
yes.
requesting a laptop.
Yeah, it's like when
Yes.
you are, when a chief director wants to go on leave, maybe not, let's not say chief director, a director.
Yes.
When they want to go on leave, the chief director, who I assume would be their immediate superior,
Yes.
would need to sign whether, maybe recommend, I don't know.
They
but
approve.
maybe ultimately somebody else must approve.
There are delegations.
There are
The chief,
delegations,
in this case,
yes.
let's say it starts from the deputy director or the assistant director. The deputy director will recommend or support, and then the director will also maybe say, I know it recommend, and then the
Yes.
CFO sign. The chief director in this case
Yeah.
approves.
Approves, yes, yes. So that's the context
Those are
in
the
which I'm
levels.
looking at it, that you have somebody who is requesting, you have got somebody who needs approval,
Yes,
ultimately.
yes.
But the person who has the authority to approve doesn't want to or can't approve unless somebody else has recommended. And therefore, there's a
Yes.
requester, there's a recommender, and there's an approver.
Exactly, that's why we are
Yes.
saying, in most, if it was according to,
Normal.
let's say, no, if we were saying we want to do away with other officials to sign documents,
Yes, yes.
we could say, HOD, it's you who want this.
Yes.
Compile it and approve it yourself.
Yes, yes.
But in this case, the HOD has got the powers to say, compile it for me. You
Yes.
cannot just write it and say, here is it.
Yes.
You will still have to say, okay, you want it, then I'm
Yes.
compiling it to you.
Yes.
It still has to go to another person,
Yeah.
and then it goes to the HOD.
So is your point that although here it does look like you were making the recommendation, you were just doing what the HOD wanted you to do?
Yes, which could be any person
Yeah,
in this case.
but
yes.
not that it was something coming from
No,
from
not at
you.
all.
Yeah. He
Yes.
wanted to achieve a certain objective, and he asked you to prepare a document. You prepared a document. He had told you that he was deviating.
Yes, yes,
He
yes.
thought there were enough grounds to deviate. You might have had a different view, but your attitude was, it's his decision, and I'll prepare the document. The only
Yes.
problem is just that your name is there, your signature is
Yes, I
there.
could have just compiled it, give
Yeah,
it to him.
you
yes.
could have said, well, I don't want, I can prepare it for you, but let it be in your name, not in my name.
Exactly.
Yes, okay, thank you. Lerato?
Thank you, Chair. We found the copies
Oh,
that
have
we
you
had.
found it? Oh, I'll
Yes.
give it to Dr. Masiteng. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you.
We'll add
I'm
it to
done.
the reference bundle, Chair.
Okay, no,
And so
that's
this
fine.
document will simply paginate properly and put in your reference bundle.
No, that's fine.
If I might just ask one last question arising from the questions you've been asking, Dr. Masiteng.
Yes.
From this document, Dr. Masiteng, you didn't stand to benefit anything really
No, nothing
by
at all.
compiling it in the manner in which you compiled.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Are you done?
The only other thing you were interested in, Chairman, were the beneficiary agreements, which were drafted. Well, they were prepared by Dr. Masiteng. I don't know if you still want to hear his version of those beneficiary agreements.
Unless you have looked at them, unless there is something important, if they are there,
It was really just in why they were compiled in that particular manner. So they hadn't separated the different beneficiaries. The clauses didn't really make sense. So when Mr. Fenter was here, you were interrogating that issue. Dr. Masiteng has an explanation. Maybe you should give us a very short explanation. So on record,
Yes.
he has given you an explanation.
Okay, no, I think ask him because I've forgotten what my line of questioning was. Yeah.
So Dr. Masiteng, could you just explain to the chairman how you came to be responsible for those beneficiary agreements and why they were drafted in the manner in which they were drafted?
Yeah, thank you, Chairperson. What happened is that as a compliance issue, after an approval, you must enter into a beneficiary agreement with those beneficiaries. That is,
is that the agreement that was between the department and the project?
Correct.
The project with the assistance of the beneficiary or something like that.
Correct.
Yes,
That's
okay,
the
now
one
I
that,
remember,
that
yes.
bothered you a bit.
Yes, yes. Now, well, what was strange to me is when I looked at those agreements, or at least one of them, they just didn't seem to be, you know, some of the aspects didn't seem to make sense. Like it was between the department and the dairy project. You can't have an agreement with a project, you know. But maybe if whoever drafted them and if you say it's you, it's because you are not, I shouldn't say you are not, you might not be a lawyer. I don't know all your qualifications, so you might not be a lawyer and therefore you might not have appreciated those things.
okay. No, thank you very much, Chairperson. The agreement was not actually drafted by myself.
Yes.
It was drafted by our legal team. We also realized with time that, remember, that was in 2013.
Yeah.
Then we realized that there are certain clauses that we have to clean, of which our legal team has went through that. We also went through AG's recommendations and findings, and then it was correct. But the fact of the matter is that that one, Chairperson, was signed with the beneficiaries
Yes.
of the dairy project. That was the thing. And you cannot take a project to national if it does not have beneficiaries. That is why they were forced to give us the first list of the beneficiaries. And the second list, which was now going with the beneficiary agreement, had to go with the IDs, because now we are sure that this project has been approved. And that I did because I was delegated to do that. And I can read to you the letter that was delegating that responsibility to me.
No. The issue wasn't so much the delegation in terms of what I was looking at. It was simply the content and
Yes.
and certain aspects of it. So, but the agreement that I'm talking about, that was the one which was saying the agreement is between the Department of Agriculture, and then instead of giving the name of the beneficiary, it would give the name of the project.
Okay.
And then below that, it would say something like in association with then the beneficiary. That's the one I'm talking about.
You are spot on, Chairperson. We have corrected that in the new agreements.
But that was your legal department that had drafted that one.
Yes, it was drafted long time. I think it was drafted in 2010. We have been using it until 2013 after this one, when we said, no, there are certain things that are no more relevant in this case.
Okay, no, that's
Yes.
fine, that's fine. Thank you.
And just for the record, Chairman, that particular agreement is on page 1333 of,
1333.
correct, Chairman, of reference bundle D, just
Okay,
for
thank
record
you,
purposes.
thank you.
Chairman,
Otherwise, I'm done.
Chairman, otherwise, those are the
Questions?
issues we really wanted to raise with Dr. Masiteng.
Yes.
Unless there are other matters that he thinks are important that we haven't touched on, that he does want you to know about, we
Yes,
are
you are
done
done.
with our
Is
questions.
there anything else that you feel the Commission should know about this whole project that you haven't mentioned?
No, Chairperson, thank you very much for the opportunity. Chairperson, I just want to indicate that there has never been a meeting where I was called and corruption into this project was discussed with me. Not at all. I
Okay.
have no idea whatsoever
Yes.
about I'm
Yes.
also shocked about some of the things, Chairperson.
Yes.
That is why I'm also in understanding the district directors and the project coordinators' emotions and feelings around these things. And I know
Yes.
they were doing it out of their own heart. They were doing their job.
Yes.
They knew nothing about
Yes.
these other challenges that we are
Yes.
confronted with, Chairperson. But thank you very much, Chairperson, for
Yes.
the opportunity.
The just last part, if you are able to say, you might not be able to say off the top of your head, more or less, how much are the taxpayers paying for this project annually, maybe in the last 3 years, more or less, not necessarily the exact figure? In what region in terms of amounts are we talking about as it continues? Or is that difficult to say without
It's a little bit
checking?
difficult, Chairperson, because even the court order is
Yes.
suggesting that, look, the department must budget for the project. I think
Yes.
it is done in good faith to say,
yes.
you can't let it fall.
Yes,
You
okay.
have to invest, so we are still
Yes.
budgeting for it in
Okay.
terms of the court order.
Okay.
But I think I can go into, we'll be able to abstract from our bus
Information.
report, I might be able to.
And send it to the legal team, just to say, maybe from the time it started, this is what has been paid, has been spent annually up to now, the previous financial year, by the provincial department and maybe national, I don't know, just to give us a full picture of how much money has gotten into it.
No,
So if
thank
you
you
could prepare something like that and be in touch with the legal team, that would be very helpful.
No, thank you very much.
Yes, yes. No, thank you very much for coming to give evidence to the commission. We appreciate it. You are excused.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. We have your bundles for tomorrow,
Yes, no, that's fine.
and we'll be handing those up.
Yes. Tomorrow, how many witnesses have we got?
There are 2 witnesses, Chairman.
Yes.
And they're, as you can see, their
Yes.
bundles are fairly slim.
Yes.
It's Dr. Albert, Dr. Khadebe, and Mr. Willie Basson.
Yes.
They should not take too long, Chairman.
Oh, okay, no, that's fine. Is Mr. Tabete coming?
We
This
have,
week?
no,
Not
no,
this week.
Chairman. We have tried to engage Mr. Tabete. We continue to try.
Yes.
We'll come back to you by Friday when we
Okay.
break to tell you what progress we're making.
Okay,
We're not making much progress at this point, Chairman, but we'll see.
yes. Okay, no, that's fine.
If I might say, the intention is to have Mr. Tabete come. He certainly got his 3-3 notices. The CFO, Dlamini, got 3-3 notices.
Yeah,
MEC Rockman, Finance, MEC Kabate, Agriculture, MEC Mlamleli, Agriculture, they all have 3-3 notices.
yes,
And then Mr. Zwani and Mr. Mahatule.
yes.
But it's scheduling those appearances, Chairman, that might be a little bit of a challenge. We'll see how it goes.
Yes, okay, no, arrangements need to be made for the legal team to say to them, we would like to talk to you about what certain witnesses say about you, and or to say, we would like you to provide your version by way of affidavits, but preferably, if they agree, an interview where they can put their version and statements can be prepared, or if an arrangement is made with their lawyers to say, we will provide their statements, we will prepare them, and an agreement would have to be made in terms of timeframes, that would still be fine. But in the end, it will be important that they come and give their side of the story as well. Yeah, yeah.
Thank
And be questioned. Yeah. Okay, tomorrow we can start, we can start at 10, I guess.
Chairman, we have an additional hearing that you've slotted in for my colleagues at 4:30. So
Or
we-
in the afternoon.
In the afternoon, so we must be
Yes.
done by 4:15.
Yes, but how does it look like in terms of the people you have?
10 o'clock, my colleagues say they'll be leading these witnesses, Chairman. They say 10 o'clock as a starting time is perfect. They don't think they need more than 2 hours for each witness.
Yes. Okay, all right. We'll then adjourn, and tomorrow we'll start at 10 o'clock. We adjourn.